The rest of us are old timers that have been here since dirt.
Was that Kimberly?
Hi,
Welcome
So-
aboard.
thank you.
So I welcome you all back. It's been a while since we last met, February 20th to be exact. Let's start by standing and pledging the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Gifford,
Present.
Mr. Brown. Present. Mr. Green,
Here.
David Lightholder, Virginia Weaver, Lloyd Roberts,
Present.
Kimberly Curtis.
Here.
Okay, and would you swear in our officers, please?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we can get this ball rolling along. We have an agenda that you should each have, and I'm going to give you some notes of items that have changed. If it's tabled, it means that back to us at some point. If it's complied, that means they took care of what they needed to do. So the first item to make note of is item number 4. That's case number 20203128. It's tabled. Next item is number 8. 19-561. They complied.
I'm Jeff Fallon, representing Nancy Maloney on Derby Street. We're asking for a lien reduction of the.
Okay, sir, excuse me. That's later in the agenda.
And they told us we were up.
Well, no, we're going to do liens first, but he's going through other parts of the agenda, but we'll be calling you shortly.
Okay, item number 13 is case 19279. That's removed from the agenda. Next is number 14. That's item 19-537, also removed from the agenda. Item 16, 20-622 has complied. Welcome, Counselor. It's all right. Item number 18, 20-849 is tabled. They only complied on that one item then. Item number 20, that is case 20-806, has complied.
What was the last one, Jim?
Item
What was the last
20,
one you just said? What number?
20.
That's the last.
I got 297 for a number on that one.
You got 19?
Item 20, the case number is 20-806.
Yeah, 806.
Okay, you squared away. Item number 21, case 20-862 is tabled. in the non-compliance section of the agenda. The first item, number 1, is removed. Item number 2 is removed. And all the way to the back, number 9 has complied. And that indeed would bring us to the end of the day. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda, but could you tell me what remove means?
It,
Withdrawn? Just withdrawn?
Yes, same thing, yes.
Oh, okay, okay, I got you.
yeah, it may come back or it may not.
Second.
Okay, motion to the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now we're going to test your long-term memory. Back on February the 20th of 2020, this group came together for a code enforcement meeting, and the minutes are before you. I need a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the February 21st. Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Okay, and the gentleman left.
They're just out in the hallway, but our first lien reduction's here, so we can
Okay.
continue.
The agenda next is lien reductions. The first one on the agenda is case CE-17-391.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Code Enforcement Officer Steve Murdock. Case number 17-391 for the property at 252 Orange Street. The Code Enforcement Board held a public hearing on September 21st, 2017, at which time the board found owner Alec Greenwood in violation of the following. Appendix A, Article 7, Section 3, minimum standards for design of off-street parking and driveways. Corrected violations were protective treatment, Section 6, 1003B, storing junk or autos, Section 6, 902B, 1 and 2. The Code Enforcement Board provided the owner sufficient time to correct the said violation. Therefore, consistent with the Code Enforcement Board's order, a lien was recorded against the property effective March 6, 2018. The lien ran at $25 per day from January 19th, 2018 until compliance was achieved 6/18/2020. Code records show on-site inspections were conducted by Officer Murdock. The current owner, Alec Greenwood, is requesting that the lien be reduced to 0 due to the fact that Mr. Greenwood felt the ordinance was unclear and that the code needed to be updated to have lime rock added to the acceptable substance. Staff utilized the following factors making its recommendations to reduce the lien. Whether the current owner owned the property at the time of the violation occurred? Yes. The number of violations related to the subject lien? 3. Number of inspections performed? 20. The length of time the property was in violation? 1,591 days. Previous code violations? Yes, on other properties closed without code board action. Property taxes, 2019 are due with no outstanding tax bills. Other liens? Records show no outstanding liens on the property and no water liens. The property was inspected on August 19th and was in compliance before the code board hearing. An inspection will occur prior to the council meeting. The current market value of the subject property, the current market value of the property is $34,140 according to the Brevard County property appraiser. Staff submits their cost sheet for $2,600.92 and recommends that the lien, recommends reduce the lien to the city cost, which is close to 6.5% of the current fine of $39,775. Staff recommendation is based on the gravity of the violations, the length of time it took for the property to come in compliance, and the total amount of staff time. And the property owner is here tonight.
Okay,
Did you put in the record what your recommendation was?
I'm sorry?
Did you say what what was your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. It was staff, the cost, we submitted their cost sheet of $2,692, $2,600.92 as I eat my mask.
okay. Greenwood?
Could I just ask a question? please?
Yes, sir.
What is actually the violations that were not taken care of?
The violation that was not taken care of was the driveway surface.
The driveways?
Yes, sir. Protective treatment and the
Talking about the-
junk auto were removed.
And how was that violation resolved?
For the gravel driveway,
Yes.
be removal of the gravel.
Which he has done pending what substance he'll be allowed to put down afterwards. So he scraped up all the lime rock on the length of what's considered the driveway in order to comply this case so he could be heard for a lien reduction.
I have one other question.
Yes, sir.
How much time was spent between you and Mr. Greenwood just to find out what he had to do as the fine's still going on, but he's working with the city? So how about that time that it took to get what's resolved now? And he's being fined.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Gifford, he appeared before this board under the violation of the ordinance that was in place at the time. He went to it after several hearings, he was found in violation, given time to correct it. He did not correct it, so at the noncompliance hearing, he was held in noncompliance. The fact that he determined that he wanted to try to change the ordinance is not necessarily working with the city, it's changing the ordinance, but he was still in violation for that entire time. As of today, there is no new ordinance, so that ordinance is still in place, but he's in compliance now. So when you say working with the city, he wasn't working towards correction, he was working towards a change of the code. But it did not stop him from accumulating a daily fine.
Okay. Mr. Greenwood?
There's a lot of background information that's not been shared, obviously. Alex Greenwood, 640 Brevard Avenue, Cocoa. Am I allowed to speak at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Basically, the facts that was presented by Stephen were,
Hold one moment, please.
You need to be sworn in.
oh,
I. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
yes. There's background information that's not being presented. I did some public records requests, and I was the first house, residential house, not commercial. That's what transpired before this address. The issue of gravel. At that time, there was another community development director, and at that time, they were looking to upgrade some of the requirements for coverage for driveways. In the meantime, this is a renovation, and the city supports dirt driveways. They do not want upgrades. However, it's still not required to pull a permit for lime rock gravel. You're not required to pull a permit for brick driveways either. It's a good idea to look at it in an upgrading position, but I felt that I was being singled out as being self-serving. That's why all this time passed. And the only reason I'm before you now is because I insisted for a meeting between the city manager and the code enforcement board and the commercial and the community development department. Only because I did not want this to continue anymore, and because this is something that I thought, okay, I'm very strong about this. This doesn't make any sense. The code reads more commercial than residential. It even talks about handicap striping, also the certain size striping you want on the driveways. It's totally confusing why it would be enforced. There was a unanimous decision by the P&Z board of over 10 people that said that this code should not be enforced any longer. It was presented to the council, and at the council meeting, the city manager at that time stated they would not enforce it. This is the history of this one example of gravel driveways that's been utilized all over the city of Cocoa for years. I'm a licensed developer for the city, the state of Florida, and I've been doing a lot of renovations in the city, primarily drug-infested properties that I cleaned up. It's that simple. This all of a sudden was created when myself and a lot of other people were surprised, including the person that went before the P&Z board that was livid about being approached about his driveway for the same reasons. But they were all resolved on the side, and one was grown over. The bottom line is, it's not a code that is really truly clear or enforceable, and I have a letter that I provided copies of during the meeting with the city manager, the code enforcement people, and the attorney said that although it can be vague and can be misconstrued, but still it needs to be reevaluated and then brought to the public for a consideration of a vote. None of that was done. It was just all of a sudden starting to be enforced. The only thing I can say is I feel that this is a very inexpensive way to keep from having dirt going to the driveway. It's a very inexpensive way to eliminate just dirt in front of houses that are existing that you want renovated. And it serves as a very good base for concrete to be poured right on top of it. Because the first thing you want to do is put lime rock down. That was the next level. You have this example of gravel used throughout the city of Cocoa, including houses in the 200, 300, and 400 price range near the Cocoa High School. All you have to do is drive by. So I'm just stating that I've let this time go by because I knew eventually there'll be enough complaints about it that it doesn't look like I'm self-serving. And that's what I was accused of, since I was really the first that was charged with this. The others that were following after that, they were solved in meetings, I guess. I don't know the particulars of it, but the point I'm making is it was enforced starting with my property. I have the public records. The previous properties were commercial, under construction, rock under dumpsters, things like that. And I knew that it was not something that should continue, and I just thought, okay, I'll let the public speak. That's what happened. That's how the P&Z board voted, and we're at that point, and I'm going to be including other codes and ordinances that basically created a don't build in Cocoa atmosphere. And that was done starting in 2014, and the commercial property group that I've been able to put together are very concerned about it. It includes parking sizes. I mean, I'm not going to waste time on other things. But in reference to that, that's the history. I was the first to start with that, and I'm now the last addressing this gravel issue. Cocoa at this point prefers dirt instead of any other item for a house to be renovated that's existing. There was tire tracks of gravel there from the previous owners, and I just said, I'll just put the whole driveway together in lime rock like I've done for years, and that includes other property up and down Orange Street, one that was more than 15 years ago, and it's a lot more gravel than that right there. That was in 2008, I believe, 2004, somewhere in there. It was a 150-foot long driveway, and the address was 229 Orange Street. I didn't have issues with it then. I even went to the chief at the time was Scott Davis, and I asked him, is there a permit required for what I'm getting ready to do? No, absolutely not. And then when this started, I went to him and basically said, what's this all about? He said, well, in our department, it doesn't require a permit. The other departments of the city, that's different. I can't get involved. And that's how it was explained. Thank you.
Okay.
So here we are.
As you're aware, whatever we do here becomes a recommendation to city council.
Yes, sir.
And so you may have to tell this story all over again.
Oh, yeah, there.
May I ask a question? Dennis, I was just looking at the initial order of the board, and there were 3 violations. And refresh my memory, when it came to the order imposing fine, was it only down to the 1 violation, or was the fine running on all 3 violations? 'Cause
I
the
have to look, but I believe that the vehicles were corrected before the non-compliance. There was a slight property protective treatment issue that needed to be done when the non-compliance was put into effect, but that was corrected rather quickly after that meeting.
Okay.
The majority of this fine was all because of the driveway.
I just wanted to make that clear in the record that even though the initial order has 3 violations, I just want to make it clear what the fines, the running fines actually were applicable to the gravel driveway.
Correct, and the non-compliance hearing, Mr. Greenwood was unsure of this one area by the AC unit about painting. It went through non-compliance anyway, but he painted that up shortly thereafter.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I'd like to make a motion on this case. I want to tell you my feelings on this here. That little place is fixed up beautiful. There's no safety violation with that. It is not an unsightly situation. I can't see that type of fine on a nice looking driveway like that, so on this case here, let me see what I'm looking at. CE 17391, that the fine will be 0.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Discussion, Mr. Chair? Discussion? I'd like to ask Mr. Bunt, what's the current status of enforcement of this particular ordinance? Are we still enforcing this ordinance elsewhere in the city?
Well, after the P and Z board requested that a ordinance be looked for an upgrade, it was brought up at council, and the city manager said at this time, put a moratorium on new cases until they can get a new ordinance developed and go through the process, because they would have to go to P and Z, then before the city council for public hearings, and he said to stay it. This was a year and a half or so after this case was already found in violation. So right now, no, we're waiting for the new ordinance to go through P and Z and then come before council. And there's just a moratorium on citing these until that's all been corrected.
So in round dates, the lien accrued for about a year and a half before the city's policy was to have a moratorium, and we've had another year and a half since then. So we've been accruing fines for almost 3 years. Is that about right?
Pretty close to 3 years, not quite.
Close to 3 years.
Some of it was not actually being fined, but Mr. Greenwood was cited back that far.
Yeah.
And we went through, I believe, 4 tablings at the board, heard this case 4 months in a row, found it in violation based on what was written in the ordinance, not whether or not the ordinance should be changed.
Right.
And then he was in noncompliance. After the noncompliance is when a real big push started to change the ordinance. But I would just like to say, we don't know what that new ordinance is going to be.
Right.
And the new ordinance may or may not allow lime rock.
Right.
Because the engineers have an issue with stormwater and stuff, but that's for them to figure out. If they allow lime rock when it's done, Mr. Greenwood can put lime rock back in his driveway. If they don't, he will have to come up with a suitable substance. But it's code enforcement's job to enforce what's written in the code in the books, not to make those assumptions. So that's why we didn't.
Yeah. that's the direction I was going here, and I think that for us to forgive the fines for the period that the code was being enforced without any further direction, and Mr. Greenwood, I'm sure that when you were before this board, when the fines were originally imposed, you gave us all of this information that you just gave us then, so the board made its decision based on what they knew at the time, and now you're asking us to change that decision based on what we know now. I would suggest that you probably have a pretty good case to say that when the city changes, presuming the city does, when the city changes the ordinance, you would have a better case to say, I'd like this all forgiven. I think you might have a case to say, I would like the first half forgiven and the second half put on hold, from the moratorium forward, and you personally might do better to come back and ask for your lien reduction after the city makes whatever changes the city's going to make.
May I respond?
Please do.
Yes.
As I stated earlier, the time period went by only because I was not listened to for the issues that I thought were important. And I was looked upon as being self-serving by trying to be reconsidered for the lien that's on the property.
Okay.
The other thing that wasn't admitted today was there is an email from the Public Works Department, Mr. Brian Smith, that felt that there was no issue or problems for a gravel driveway. So that's information that's going to be involved. The only reason that I was able to get to the point that I'm at right now is only because there was other residents upset, and there was one particular resident who was a builder like myself, and he was irate about it. And quite frankly, he was irate enough that convinced the P&Z board that this needs to be stopped, no longer enforced. So for me to be looked upon as if I was lollylagging, it was because I wasn't listened to. And I knew that eventually there'd be enough residents that will be upset about the same issues that I was to realize that it's not something that should be continued to be enforced. The bottom line is, I'm the first example. I'm the first residential lien put on my property for Lime Rock. Not before, but there were others after. That's the bottom line. I feel I was singled out, maybe for political reasons. It doesn't matter. The point is that it is not something that I feel that Cocoa should be known for by preferring dirt driveways instead of anything else, especially when you're renovating in a drug-infested area when I first invested. That's simple. You should not
Mr.
be
Chairman,
penalizing anybody.
can I just clue the board in on how code enforcement works, okay? Because I've already had this meeting with Alex, with the city manager and other people present. We discussed his emails and what the actual intention of the email was. He reads it one way, we got clarification, but I don't want to rehash that because none of that is part of this case. The way code works is when he was found in violation, Mr. Greenwood did have 30 days to appeal that before court and appeal the decision based on all these facts that we're hearing today. That was not done. He could have also appealed the noncompliance within 30 days to court. Instead, he tried to change the ordinance. That's commendable, but the fine is still going to run until an ordinance is changed. So at this juncture, he's complied. There's a recommendation from one board member. The board can recommend whatever they want, and then council will go from there. But to rehash the entire case to show wrongdoing is absolutely wrong. It was heard at this level, and it was found to be in violation. It was brought back and found to be in noncompliance. And again, we don't know what the new ordinance is going to hold for Mr. Greenwood in the future.
Right. Okay.
So,
Can I respond?
the recommendation's a recommendation.
In an effort to move forward, is your second going to stand, or are you pulling it back?
I did not second.
He didn't
I
second.
asked for discussion.
Oh, okay.
May I respond?
Do I have a second on Mr. Brown's motion from anyone else? I guess as chair, I can make a second, right?
You can.
I will second. So we have a motion on the floor to reduce our recommendation to council to 0, and we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No,
Oppose.
Two. Yes, no?
Yes, no,
You're a no.
yes.
Kimberly?
Correct.
I'm a yes.
You're a yes?
Yes.
3 yeses, beat 2 noes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We can move on.
and
Recommendation.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment, and that is that I don't think it's unreasonable for Mr. Greenwood to say that if something changes, that he should be forgiven his liens, but I think that this is not timely. I think that he should wait until the ordinance actually is changed, presuming it will be, and then in that case, I would have absolutely no problem forgiving the liens.
Okay. This will go forward to council as a recommendation to reduce it to 0, however.
Is it important at all for me to make any statement right now? What
No.
do you recommend, Chairman?
No, you're
Thank you for your attention to this. I appreciate it.
you're
Thank you
excused.
for your vote.
Thank you. Put your mask on.
I can't talk with it. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is CE-18-644.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. Case 18-644, the Code Enforcement Board held a public hearing on 5/16/2018, at which time the board found the owner, Momoxie Investments LLC, in violation of the following: protective treatment, Section 6-1003B, roofs and drainage, Section 6-1003G, accumulation of trash and litter, Section 6-900B1 A through D, boarded up windows, Section 6-900B5. The Code Enforcement Board provided the owner time to correct the said violations. Therefore, consistent with Code Enforcement Board's order, a lien was recorded against the property effective 7/17/2019. The lien ran at $100 per day from 7/17/2019 until compliance was achieved on 4/7/2020. The total fine is $26,610. Code records show on-site inspections were conducted and contact was made. The current owner, Momoxie Investments, is requesting that the lien be reduced to $0 to $1,000 due to obtaining a permit and contractor issues. Staff utilized the following factors in making the recommendation to reduce the lien: whether the current owner owned the property at the time of the violations occurred, yes. The number of violations related to the subject liens was 4. Number of inspections was 11. The length of time the property was in violation. The previous code violations, yes, there were property had been cited 6 times in the past. Property taxes, 2019 are due with no outstanding tax bills. Other liens, the record shows no outstanding liens on the property and no water liens. The property was inspected on 6/2/2020 and was in compliance, and again before the council meeting. The current market value for the subject property, the current market value is $64,630 according to the Brevard County Property Appraiser. The total amount of liens is $26,610. Staff submits their cost sheet for case 18-644 in the amount of $1,280.63. Staff recommendation was based on the gravity of the violations, the amount of time it took for the property to come into compliance, and the total amount of fines. A reduction to the total amount as per the city's cost in the amount of $1,280.63. And the property owners here this evening, ma'am? I'd just like to come up and Darla will swear you in.
Truth so help you God? Yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Beatrice Moxie.
Can you come closer to the microphone, hon?
My name is Beatrice. My name is Beatrice Moxie. Current address is 1026 Home Grove Drive in Winter Florida. Business address is 1113 North Pine Hills Road in Orlando.
Okay, well,
Well, thanks for meeting. I've been looking forward to this meeting for a while. This property has been in contract, and I'm a faithful buyer who's waiting.
Can you please speak into the mic, hon?
What happened is I had voice box surgery, so it's hard for me to talk.
Steve, can you help her adjust that mic?
Either that or she can talk in the other one over there.
Or she can just hold it, just,
Yeah, take it out.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I recall when I came here for last year, May. Of course, the board gave me 60 days in which was to bring the property in compliance. However, of course, I went through 2 GCs that actually basically took my money and run off. Permit was applied for. It took more than the 60 days was to get the permit done because the building department asked for a plan, plumbing diagram, and electrical map for the property. I hired an architect to do this work. It took him quite some time was to get that done. By the time I got it back to the city, it was done, get back to the permitting department. So resubmitted to make changes, you name it. I never got the permit in my hand until like, was it October of last year, October last year. Unfortunately, I fell sick as well. I got to have back surgery. I had a tumor in my back, and I had to have surgery. And having the amount of GC issues and not being able to be hands-on, the project took time and dragged out. So February of this year, when I hired another contractor to do the outside of the property, because I know that's what the violations were basically about, the windows, the soffit, and all the other things, because you see the condition the property was in when I purchased it. Finally, the exterior was done before the inside. Then by May, I hired another contractor to do the interior of the property. And of course, that took some time. So by the time, everything just basically dragged on and on and on, because I never was able to pin down one GC who had taken this seriously to get this project done like it was supposed to and follow the permitting or even keeping up on the permit. Because if the second GC did take on the, and follow up on the permit, making sure that everything is done, this house would have been finished since 2019. But again, we cannot control what people do. And unfortunately, right now, as it stands, the initial purchase of that property was $55,000. I refinanced it, took $65,000 was to fix it. Right now, as it stands, with all the monies that I've lost up to now, I'm in the project. Just today, I sat down with my husband. We went through it. I'm in it right now at $113,000. So needless to say, I have the figures right here with me. With your fine, $26,000, I'm most likely gonna have to closing with funds, which is coming up to like $11,000. So here is a project that cost me sleepless nights while I'm in pain. And still coming out with nothing, making nothing. I'm at a loss. I respect the government, the counties, the cities, and I have renovated numerous properties from Tampa to Lakeland to Ormond Beach, and I've always hired and lucky enough to find good people to do my work. Unfortunately for Elizabeth Avenue, it didn't work like that. And to both GCs, I lost $26,000. And the GC that finished off this project, his labor cost was 21. Add all three together. So I'm asking the board to really take into consideration my situation. And, you know, I was trying to do good. When I go out and I buy distressed properties, I don't buy them to say, well, I'm gonna get rich. I do this because I'm mostly in distressed areas, because the American dream is home ownership. When I came from Jamaica here, that was one thing I was told, that the American dream is to own your own home. And becoming a real estate agent, I ran into so many people who have lower income, who cannot basically go out and buy a $200,000 and a $300,000 home. But when I renovate something like that and bring it to this, and I can sell it back for $150,000, that means a person who makes $35,000 to $40,000 with decent credit can get into a home like that and build up a neighborhood.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Brown.
you've done a beautiful job in that home plan. Beautiful job. I'd like to make a recommendation on this here so we can keep moving on. This, case number 18, 644, and we increased the lien to $500.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor with a second to recommend to council a reduction to a total of $500. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You've done a beautiful job in that home.
Okay, next item is CE 14-285. Is,
The petitioners are not here, so we will skip this and I'll schedule it for next month because they're not here to speak.
okay,
So we'll just move on to our last fine.
the last lien reduction request is CE 16-424.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. Case number 16-424. The property address is 112 Derby Street. The Code Enforcement Board held a public hearing on November 17th, 2016, at which time the board found the owner, Nancy Maloney, in violation of the following: fencing and shed in disrepair, Section 6, 1001G; high grass, weeds, and overgrowth, Section 6, 1001D; failure to secure structure, Section 6, 900B7. The Code Enforcement Board provided the owner time to correct the said violations. Therefore, consistent with the Code Enforcement Board's order, a lien was recorded against the property effective December 17th, 2016. The lien ran at $25 per day from December 18th, 2016 until compliance was achieved 6/25/2018. The total fine is $31,960. Code records show on-site inspections were conducted and contact was made. The current owner, Nancy Maloney, is requesting that the lien be reduced to 0. The staff utilized the following factors making its recommendation to reduce the lien. Whether the current applicant was the owner of the property at the time of the violations, yes. The number of violations related to the subject lien were 3. The number of inspections performed was 8. The length of time the property was in violation before correction. Previous code violations, there were some previous code violations. Property taxes, 2019 are paid with no outstanding tax bills. Other liens, records show no outstanding liens on the property and no water liens. Property was inspected on 6/24/2020 and was in compliance prior to the code board meeting. The current market value for the subject property, according to the Brevard County property appraiser, is $189,850. The total amount of the lien is $31,960. Staff submits their cost sheet for case 16-424 in the amount of $1,107.60. Staff recommendation is based on the gravity of the violations, the amount of time it took the property to come in compliance, and the total amount of the fines. A reduction to the total amount of $1,107.60, which are staff costs. And there's a representative for the property here this evening.
Let me ask a question first. We're looking at an empty lot there. Did we demolish it? Did they demolish?
No, the property owner demolished the house.
Okay. Okay, you need to be sworn in, please, if you're both going to speak.
Well, and the one, Mr. Goldman, he's an attorney, so he
okay.
doesn't have to be, but Mrs. Maloney will have to be sworn in.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please state your name and address for the record. Microphone, please.
Steve, help her out. Yeah.
My name is Nancy Maloney, Loney. My street address is 1167 North Indian River Drive. My previous address, to which some of the correspondence came, was 58 Hilltop Lane in College. My new address is in Cope. I met with the city. Can you hear me okay?
Can't make out a word you're saying.
Yeah.
She's sworn in. Yes. Yes.
Does the attorney want to make the presentation, or do you want your client to make it?
Well,
Okay.
he'll actually make the presentation. I am the one who paid for the demolition of the property and asbestos abatement. After meeting with the city as a condition precedent of forgiveness, I'll let Mr. Golub, and it's G-O-L-U, speak.
All right, thank you, Jeff Golub. I think the main issue with the problem was, unfortunately, there were some homeless people and other things, and they would keep kind of breaking the fence, and then they would mess with the shed, they'd break windows. So we were in a situation where Ms. Maloney was putting a lot of work into it. She did fix the roof, she did painting at times, but then she also hired people to fix the fence. Every time she'd get a notice, she would give it to Mr. Greenwood, who came before you, and he would go and fix it. And then at some point, a lot of times it would break again because of the people who were going to the area. They were going under the fence, they'd break windows, and these were the issues. But everything's in compliance now because obviously she decided the only way to fix it was to demolish the whole thing, because no matter what she would do, people would come by and still cause problems with the property. So ultimately, this is what she had to do. But throughout, she was trying to fix it, though I do realize the code went by many times, but there were times when it was fixed, but it didn't stay fixed long because the people would go and throw the rocks and they take down the fence. So she really did try to keep the property up, but unfortunately, where it was and the people who were going by, that way they could break it at any time, and she kept thinking everything was okay because she'd someone to fix it, and then it would have to happen again. So, I mean, we're asking obviously the lien zero, but we want to pay the costs that were mentioned. We know we're responsible for that, and that's what we'd ask. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
Question.
In the case of CE 16,
I'm just wondering, the time frame in which the code violations occurred, and then accruing to the time frame in which you decide to demo.
I was unaware that there was a lien that was continued because I had written to the city and written to code enforcement, called code enforcement, and I explained to them that I was in the process of getting things fixed. There, I had done it a number of times before. I had receipts of over $700 to make the repairs. My understanding was that the repairs were made. In the process, 2016, I moved from my 58 Hilltop address, and I had renters in that property, and I was living at the end of the year in the Cocoa property, and I think that. So it wasn't until I was fully aware that that had not been satisfied that I satisfied that lien.
He's asking specifically, I think, about when it was demoed. And I took a little while to demo because we were trying to find someone to demo. At one point, we were going to have the city demo, and it just took months and months until we finally got someone to actually demo it. So that was kind of the issue. But the plan to demo, I think, came back about when did we decide that we first wanted to demo? Was it this?
And Mr. Chair, if I could just add real quickly, this case was from 2016, and it was in regards to a fence and some other areas. She had moved. She said she was not aware of the 16 fine, but we did cite her recently for the whole structure and the whole property. That is when she became fully aware of this old case plus the new case. And rather than sink more money into this house that was becoming dilapidated, she chose to take it down. There was a couple issues. One was it needed an asbestos survey because of the age of the house, and then the other was, even though it's a residential house, it's sitting in a commercial area and is subject to different rules of demolition. So they took a little while getting that worked out and getting the contractor, and then they tore it down. She did not get a fine for that case, but in clearing it up, she corrected everything that was wrong, going all the way back to 2016. And this was a rather large property, and the fenced area was off to the side in the back. So her demo was for the house that Mr. Murdoch cited and all the violations there. But in doing that, she corrected her 2016 case, which she found out later during a title search and sale that was existing.
Okay.
So the only lien reduction is for that, but the demo and the new case helped correct both of them. So that was the whole time period.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Chair, in the case CE 16-424, I move that we reduce the lien to staff's recommendation of staff cost $1,107.60.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, the motion passes. And this is, as I said before, a recommendation to City Council. If you wish to appear before them, you are, it's your privilege.
Thank you for your consideration, and particularly thank Mr. Bunt for code enforcement, who who has been so helpful to me in unraveling these problems and getting a final and appropriate solution for the property.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night. Okay. That completes the lien reduction and items, and we have an appeal of a demo. Is that person present?
Yes.
Okay, that's case number CE 19-503.
Mr. Chair, this was a property that we brought to the Code Enforcement Board. It was found in violation. The board gave them 120 days to correct the violations, fix the roof. It was quite extensive. After the 120 days, they did not meet the code. They began running a lien. They still did not fix the property, so the city posted it as open unsafe because the front door kept opening up and the windows were damaged. So we posted it. It went through the demolition process. All properties were notified. They appealed the demo order to this board and was denied any additional time to fix it. So the city took the house down. And I believe they're here today to appeal the cost of the demolition. They requested to be here, so it's
Oh, okay.
them.
Oh, so this is not a demo appeal, it's the cost certification then?
Yes.
Okay.
They already had a demo appeal and it was denied, and we followed through with the demo.
Okay. Do we have any documentation of the cost of the? Guess not. Can you enlighten us on what the cost was?
She's looking it up right now.
Okay, with all the fees, it's gonna be $5,279.60.
And they were sent copy of the costs, correct?
Yes.
And have they submitted their appeal of that in a timely manner under the code?
Yes.
What was that price again, please?
$5,279.60.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And this lady is wanting to speak to us. You'll need to be sworn in, please, and use the microphone there so we can hear you.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Can you please state your name and address for the record into the microphone, please?
My name is Phyllis Cross. My address is 926 Derby Lane, Rockledge, Florida. Can you hear me?
You can pick it
Yeah,
up.
you can pick it up and hold it in your hand, might be easier.
Is there another one that's already out of the stand? Because I think that one's on and works better.
Up here?
Somebody, they just put in the wrong stand.
Oh, they did. Because it was two of them.
Kind of tall, so.
Technology is heck, isn't it? Okay, the demolition cost to the city was $5,279.60, and your appeal states what? What are you looking for?
Well, we're thinking that we would actually be here today for a lien reduction. There's quite a, just a moment. Okay, well, you all know, we've been before you before about this property, and finally, our battle with trying to save that house, it was my grandmother's house, didn't happen. And with the demolition and the liens that's assessed on this property, it's just a hardship. My father has no means of really paying for all of this. The demolition was, like she said, $5,279,000. And We have pending liens for $44,700 and $22,900. My dad did enter into
Mr. Chair, if she wants a
Yes,
lien,
no, hold up 1 minute, ma'am. Let it clarify for us.
if she wanted a lien reduction, she would have to fill out the lien reduction application. What she did is after the demo cost sheet went out, she appealed that cost. She may also want that, but she's going to need to fill out an application and go through what we just witnessed beforehand on the lien. So right now, we can only hear the cost of the demo
Okay.
appeal.
And those things could all be considered at one time. I think we should table this until, if that's what you want to do, ma'am. If you want
Yes,
to
sir.
appeal the
Well,
liens.
because we will.
It's a different standard, though. I mean, a lien reduction for the code enforcement lien standard would be a different standard from the cost certification for a demolition. Because they would, under a cost certification for a demolition, those are hard costs of the city. Those are actual costs that the city incurred, and under the code, they have to show cause why the costs and charges incurred by the city are excessive or unwarranted. That would be her burden, to show excessive or unwarranted costs,
Okay,
which would be different from the standard under a lien reduction.
So if we proceed with the request to modify the city's cost, that's a possibility here?
Yeah, that's apparently what they're asking for. That's what's on the agenda today, is just an appeal of the cost certification for the demolition costs. And the applicant would have to show that the costs are excessive or unwarranted.
And then at a later date, they could fill out a lien reduction application, which they have not done, submit it to Darla, and we would go through the process that you saw here, but it's two separate processes.
Okay, are you following that, ma'am? We,
Yes, I
It
am
is
following that. I
two
understand.
separate items?
Yes, sir, I understand. It's the letter that we sent in, we mentioned both, so I called like 3 times and left 3 messages so I could get an understanding of what we were actually going to be here for today. And I didn't get a response, so that's where we are right now.
Okay, well, we, since this is on the agenda at this point, in terms of the demolition cost, the board can consider that with the thought that this $5,279 that's hard cost. That's what we, the city, actually paid the contractor. Probably significantly less than you could have hired a contractor to get the same thing done. So, that being said,
The resources that we did have available, we were spending that money trying to save the house. Trying to fix this here and that there, but it just don't have the resources available.
And Mr. Chair, I think we should keep the testimony strictly to the demolition and why the cost may be unfair or over-absorbent, and focus on that, and then the actual testimony on what took her so long, and the code fines can be looked at during the lien reduction hearings.
right.
So we need to just kind of focus in on the demo. Like she said, she did write a letter after the cost sheet went out. She did mention fines, but that's a separate process, and it carries totally different. So we can hear the demo today, she can fill out a lien reduction, and we can put her on the agenda later.
I am a little concerned, though, if she herself was unclear what she was supposed to come here to present today, then maybe if it's the board's pleasure to give her a chance to kind of regroup and get a better understanding of the standards for the cost certification appeal versus a lien reduction, and then come back and ask for both the cost certification challenge and then a lien reduction request.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Are we able to table this for the next meeting or when she gets the lien reduction? Because like the attorney said, she doesn't
Yeah. Would you like to make that motion, please?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to table this to either the next meeting or when we have the lien reduction, so we can do both at the same time.
That's fine.
Could we just add 2 pending the submission of a lien reduction application, because if we table it, it comes back next month and she doesn't fill out the application and get all the inspections and research. So pending that, we'll table it for next board.
I stand corrected. I'd like to make a motion to table it pending a lien reduction application.
Second.
I will do the application
Okay.
immediately.
Motion on the floor with a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There are none. The motion passes. I hope you understood all of that.
Got it.
And if you have questions, staff would be happy to work with you on it.
Thank you.
Was that Mr. Green for the second?
Yes.
Mr. Chair? We take a brief recess.
Okay, call a brief recess. Item 20-772.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. The property address is 1311 North Fisk. I'm submitting photos that I took during my inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This property was inspected on 5/7/2020 and was found in repeat violation of Appendix A, Article 11, Section 3, District Intent, Single-Family Residential District Auto Repair Shops Prohibited, and Business Tax Receipt, Section 12-1A and B. I sent a notice of repeat violation on 5/7/2020, and it was sent certified and posted. And at this time, the property remains in violation. And I don't believe the property owner's here this evening.
Is someone here?
No, sir.
No? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Question.
Yes, sir.
How many times has this case been before us?
Three.
Well, and it's going to be here again later on in the new cases.
We had a case for him repairing motorcycles and running
Yeah, I
a
remember.
motorcycle shop.
Yes, I remember.
And then we brought him again for parking in the front yard. And now he's actually graduated, got rid of the motorcycles and placed all these vehicles, which he works on repeatedly.
The city is looking for $500 a day.
Yes, sir.
That's what's called for in the statute on a repeat.
And we're asking for that due to the gravity of the violation, the impact to the neighborhood, and the fact that he has been before this board before and continues to graduate upward.
Motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
In the case of 20-772, I'd like to accept with staff recommendations of $500 per day imposed.
Second.
Okay, motion with a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And next item is 19-58905.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. Property address is 511 North Kentucky Avenue. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of protective treatment, Section 61003B, trailers in yard, Section 6900B15, which is since complied. Permits required, Appendix A, Article 15, Section 2A. Storing outdoors, Section 6900B11. And storing junk or autos, Section 6902B1 and 2, which is since complied. During this case, I have visited the site a total of 12 times and found some progress made to correct the violations. I've spoken with the owner in reference to the violations, and I've checked the property's appraiser record to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in non-compliance. Notice was sent, certified, and posted. I've been working on this case since January 3rd, 2019, and brought this case before the board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case CE 2020-58905 that the owner be found in violation and the fine be amended to $75 due to the compliance we got on a couple of the items. $75 be imposed per each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved. And I don't believe there's anybody here tonight.
And you're recommending 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. And no one is here, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move in the case of 1958905, we accept staff recommendation and impose a fine of $75 per day if compliance is not achieved within 30 days.
Second.
Okay, motion with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next item is 2019-00110.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. Property address is 313 Delanoy Ave. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of protective treatment, Section 6-1003B, roofs and drainage, Section 6-1003G. During this case, I visited the site a total of 8 times and found some progress made to correct the violations. I have spoken with the owner in reference to the violations, and I've checked the property appraiser's record to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in non-compliance. The notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since 9/25/2019, and I've brought this case before the board as I have been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case CE 2019-00110 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $50 be imposed for each day the violations remain until compliance is achieved. And gentleman's here tonight to speak.
Okay, if you wish to address this, you'll need to be sworn in, please.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name and address for the record into the microphone, please.
Reynolds Jason Davis, 313 Delanoy Avenue.
You can pull the microphone closer to you.
Still. Reynolds Jason Davis, 313 Delanoy Avenue.
Okay, what would you like to tell us about?
The three original things was some paint, the awning, and the doors. The doors, the back one was actually replaced today, and the front one's getting replaced tomorrow. I've been on for a long time. The contractor took forever to get going on it. So the doors will be finished tomorrow, and basically beginning next week, and start on the awning, because we will be replacing the wood, and which we just got a permit for the beginning of last week, I think, we got a permit for that.
Okay, when we're saying protective treatment, we're talking about the whole.
On the front door, there's some deterioration of the paint and all around on the front door, or I should say on the side door, the metal door on the right of the property. And then the roofs and drainage was for the water damage to the overhang there.
Oh, okay.
Which is what he's saying he's.
All right, so, and you have someone on your schedule to get this all done in the next?
The front door in that picture is getting replaced tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Because again, the contractor took forever to get going on it. And then the overhang, I can start replacing the wood on that like on Monday.
Okay, great. City is recommending that you have 30 days to finish it up. That should be plenty, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. We're not here to be punitive, we're here to get things fixed.
Then I can actually call Steve up when I get finished with the overhang.
Yeah, that would be, that's exactly what you need to do so that he can stop the process and make your account be clear.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I can make a motion, please. 2019-00110 be found in violation. Follow the city of Southfield recommendation, please.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Motion passed. Go right to work.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. And next item is number 5. That's 2020142240.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. The property address is 904 Peachtree Street. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of landscape requirements, Appendix A, Article 13, Section 22, A through I, rubbish and garbage storage facilities, Section 6, 1006A1. During this case, I visited the site a total of 14 times and found some progress made to correct the violations. I've spoken with the owner in reference to the violations, and I have checked the property appraiser's record to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. The notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since March 18th, 2019, and have brought this case before the Code Enforcement Board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case 2020-14240 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $50 be imposed for each day the violations remain until compliance is achieved. Gentleman's here to speak for the property.
Need to be sworn in, please?
Before he speaks, I'd like to add, this is a site plan issue. When they first built this and were given permission, they were supposed to have an enclosed dumpster area with enclosures to hide the dumpsters, which, as you can see, the dumpster is rarely in that area. It's always sitting out on that little road. And then they're supposed to have shrubbery, let me get to a good picture, across the front here where the sign is, all the way around the property. They're supposed to have a hedgerow, a shrub. And you can see in the pictures as we went through that slowly diminishes to where we only now have 2 shrubs in the front, but there should be shrubs all the way down to meet the landscaping code. That's what we've cited for this case.
Okay, did we at any time have shrubs all the way along?
No, not since we cited it. We did have a few more up by the sign that have since gone, but the landscaping has been amiss for quite some time.
Okay, yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Name Jerry Davis. The situation with that was we was trying to get in contact with the planning.
Speak closer and please say your address into the microphone, please.
Okay. It's 409 Peace Street. My name is Jerry Davis. The situation is we're trying to get in contact with planning to find out how many brushes we had to put down around the building. We just talked to the lady today. She said that she was there to get back with us to let us know what we had to do. So that's the reason why we didn't put no more bush. That's why the plants, the bushes not put back around there. And the part with the dumpster is I guess the Western Waste Company. They kept putting the garbage can out like that. And we went down there and talked to them, and we complained about that they should have been putting it inside the wall, but they haven't did that. So everything else that should have been done, we did.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, and you are a representative of the owner?
Yes, the owner
or-
is over there right now.
Okay, so, but what is your function on the property?
I'm helping him do everything that need to be done because he really don't really understand what y'all want them to do.
Okay, just to be clear, the dumpster area needs to be big enough to obtain both dumpsters in it, and it needs to have an enclosure in the front that shuts and locks.
Yes.
The waste company is probably, unless you only have one dumpster in there,
Yes.
going to continue to do what they do. So if you need 2 dumpsters, you're going to have to make that wide enough to accompany 2 dumpsters.
Okay.
The original photos of this property show wooden gates on the block walls that have since been removed. They need to be put back. And then to answer your question on hedges, that area there that's grass along the sidewalk needs a
Yes.
hedgerow, and then out front needs a hedgerow. And then on the other side where you now only have 2 trees,
Yes.
you need a hedgerow buffering between the residential property and yourself.
Okay.
That's what was originally put in when the store turned in its site plan.
Okay, well, they got a brick wall up between there, so it have to be, the brushes have to be on the outside of the wall?
Yes, it can't be on their side, it's gotta be on your side. You should have a hedgerow.
Yes.
Because what's happening is, people are walking in back there, they're hiding back there. That's supposed to be all enclosed, landscaped. And same with the dumpster area. You have people, the dumpster's out, and you have people doing stuff behind the dumpster. So that all needs to be tightly enclosed. I noticed you moved the fence,
Yes, sir.
but now that has to be replaced with the shrubs.
Oh,
Because the fence didn't suffice either, but that
okay.
was a different issue.
Okay, what if we put a fence back up, would that take away from putting shrubs back, or would
Well,
we?
you have to obtain a permit, and then that would have to be reviewed by planning and zoning
Yes,
to determine if that would suffice in lieu of the shrubs. Normally, they would make you put the fence and the shrubs inside the fenced area, because you need a certain amount of landscaping for the size property that you have.
yes, I understand that.
Is 30 days going to be sufficient for him to get done what he needs to do?
It should be, because there used to be gates on where the dumpsters are.
Okay.
They just need to be replaced. And the shrubs is just a matter of digging the holes and planting. His biggest hurdle is gonna be, when it was first permitted, there was only one dumpster in that enclosure, and now they're trying to squeeze in two. That's gonna be a problem. They're gonna have to either tear one of those walls down and widen it, or find another location for the smaller dumpster.
Okay,
That might take a while, depending on what they decide to do, but since I don't know what they decide to do, I can't answer that. But
But in
30
terms of-
days, they could replace and put the shrubs up.
okay, and the shrubs, they can be basically anything, or does that planning and zoning have to say what kind of shrubs and?
I would recommend that they go to planning and zoning, because we want it to be native, we want it to work with the landscaping, so we don't want them just to buy any shrubs. So there is a list of acceptable shrubbery that they can use.
Okay,
Okay, so what will we have this from?
You have to go to City Hall, right where we are, upstairs, planning and zoning, speak to Sandra or Doty,
Yeah.
and tell
Well,
them you want to put in shrubs, what would be appropriate.
Yeah, I kind of like talked to her today, but she was in a meeting, so she just came out for a minute, said she'll get back with us later.
Well, and they're listed in the code as well, so we can also look that up if we need to
Okay.
and supply you the list. But we just don't want you to put invasive plants out there. We want them to be native, we want them to be attractive, we want them to serve the purpose they're supposed to.
Yes, I understand.
And we'll help you with that if we need to.
Oh,
okay, are you clear on what needs to be done?
yes, sir.
And the city's recommending 30 days to get it done. Can you,
Can we do a little bit longer than that? We still got to find somewhere to get the plants and stuff from.
go out to 60 days? Dennis,
What was that?
can we go to 60 days?
If that's the board's pleasure, staff would like to continue with 30 days due to the condition of this corner, but if the board wants to give them 60 days, staff would not object to that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. The last time this property was before us, I remember, were these the same violations, or are these, any of these new violations?
They are new violations. As he's been working, he's actually correcting the violations from the prior case. This picture was yesterday, and just from between today and yesterday, they've already cleaned that wall where the damage is there, as well as they had cleaned up the trash and debris.
So in other words, the violations before are very obtainable within the time that they were given before, and they're still working on those.
Yes, yeah, they had a different gentleman that was working on it for him at that point.
And Officer Murdock, is there a current fine running on that case?
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
No motion yet, is there?
No, we don't have a motion yet.
Okay. Could I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I got a question on this. Can we change the time on both of these violations? In other words, can I say, the landscape done by 30 days, and, I mean, the rubbish and garbage done by 30 days, and the landscape by 60?
Well, the rubbish and garbage is actually the facility itself, the storage facility. But at your pleasure, you can, as far as that's concerned.
60 days, reasonable.
I would defer to the attorney to answer that question for the board.
Mr. Brown, I think if you're inclined to do that, then you would want to separate the fine, because if you're going to have different compliance dates, then the fines would be running at different times.
Okay. I'm going to help the gentleman out and make a motion on this, please. Case number 202014240. That is found in violation, and that the violation be corrected within 60 days.
Okay.
Well, it's 60 days for both.
Both, for the whole thing.
The whole
Okay.
thing, yeah.
All right.
Instead of making it 60 days. Everything nice.
Or $50.
$50 a day was imposed.
Second. Motion on the floor with a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Next item is CE-19-531.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. Property address is 28 Prospect Avenue. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property, and they accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of protective treatment, Section 6, 1003B, boarded up buildings, Section 6, 900B5, accumulation of trash and litter, Section 6, 900B1A and D, and accessory structures, Section 6, 1001G. During this case, I have visited the site a total of 10 times, and I found some progress made to correct the violations. I've spoken with the property manager in reference to the violations. I have checked the property appraiser's record to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. Notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since December 17th, 2019, and have brought this case before the Code Enforcement Board as I have been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case 19-531 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $100 be imposed for each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved. And the property manager is here this evening.
Steve, is this occupied?
No, sir.
Okay, if you'd like to speak, you'll need to be sworn in, please.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Lawrence Sinclair, 1052 Mitchell Street, Cocoa, Florida. Before I move on, I'd like to ask every member of this board, if any of you have been contacted by phone, text message, or email by Jake Williams concerning this case. And I need a verbal acknowledgement you have or have not.
Mr. Chair?
We would not speak to anyone concerning any case. It's against the law for us to do that.
I understand that, but some people don't pay attention to law around here. As far as Mr. Murdoch's claim that he spoke with me, first of all, this property is under my control. The City of Cocoa, City Building Department, Code Enforcement, Police Department, Community Services, and the Water Department have a power of attorney, have blanket authorizations from me. Mr. Murdoch made contact with me after I found his notice posted on this property last week. I work with Code Enforcement. I don't have a problem. The building is boarded up. You want to know why? Because everything on that corner, every time we try to do anything with it, it's broken into, it's used to do drugs, it's used for prostitutes, it's used for junkies and hookers. Okay? These pictures, I have pictures on that laptop for you to see what it looked like before I took it. I've got $28,000 into that corner. You could not even see that building from the street when I took control of it. You couldn't even see the park. And I can show you the pictures of the human feces, the condoms, the needles, the hookers, all of it.
Excuse me, sir.
So,
yeah, we understand all
Okay.
that. We've heard it before from other owners. We know it's a problem. But what we need to do here tonight is address the issues that the code people have brought.
All right, well, why don't you ask me what the intent with the property is? And why didn't Mr. Murdoch? I have been actually working with the City Utilities Department for over a year. This property, like some others in this neighborhood, is on septic. The septic on this property is so old, my desire is to put it on city sewer. In order to do that, according to City Utilities, we have to come up with a utilities contractor and an engineer, none of which have been available, not a single one. And I can give you every list of engineers that we've contacted. Because of this, I'm about ready to say to hell with it and put it back on septic. But I'm not going to keep putting money into something that I have to keep running. Your case before this one, the trash that he just took pictures of along Prospect Avenue, that doesn't come from this property. It comes from Ballhead Store, and they all know it. This property's not the one that's got the shootings and the drug activity and the police problems. I have a problem getting sometimes the police to respond in time to get people off.
Okay.
But I'm not going to stand here and let the city say that they want to fine me $100 a day because they didn't contact me. Their own paperwork shows that Mr. Murdoch somehow thought that addressing the notice to the agent of service as opposed to addressing it to the actual property owner and care of the agent of service. And instead of calling me, he's never had a problem calling me before on any property. Why now?
Okay, look here. We're not here to beat on you. Don't expect you to beat on us. We operate under Florida statute. When we send out notices of violation, they are sent to the owner of record according to the tax collector's office. We don't just pull an address out of the air. So it went where it had to go by law. Okay? Now, if there's someplace else that you'd like notices to go in addition to that notice, we can do that.
Mr. Gifford, the notice was addressed to the agent of service rather than the actual owner from the property appraiser's office or the tax collector's office. That is not the way you notice it under Florida statute. And the actual agent of service had to contact the city specifically asking that they put the notice addressed to the property owner, but instead Mr. Murdoch's response to them is, if you don't want to be noticed on this property or your name attached to it, then you need to remove yourself from agent of service? That doesn't make sense.
Mr. Chair, and the attorney's here and she can speak on this. This is not just an individual, it is a corporation, it's an LLC. So our practice is to notify the owner of record at the address on the property appraiser and the registered agent as shown on SunBiz, and that's what we do. Mr. Sinclair did submit power of attorney a few years ago stating he was the property manager. The issue with that is we don't know if he's still employed. We don't know. Steve cited it. He cited it according to state statute. That's what he did. I will submit on the other side that if he is the property manager, he should have seen the postings ahead of time because he should be managing the property. I get that this is going to be a huge undertaking to rehab, but at this particular time, it is an attractive nuisance and it needs to be addressed in some form because there's the convenience store across the street, which we are also dealing with, and there's a park next door. So we need to try to clean up this corner. If Mr. Sinclair has a plan, that's great. We're not looking to fine him, but this property needs to be corrected. It draws people in. It draws people to hide there. It draws drugs and prostitution, and it's open and available for them to do it. So that's why we need to do this. But just to mention the clarification on notification, we followed what the state statute says.
Okay, actually, with all respect to Mr. Bump, because I have worked with him since he's been here. In fact, I worked with him before he ever became the code manager. I have the utmost respect for him. And Mr. Murdoch, I'm not picking on you as well, and I think you know that. My issue is my power of attorney actually gives me ownership rights, full ownership rights with the exception of selling, okay? So that we make that clear. And the city has been made very much aware of that. They don't, like I said, you don't have a problem contacting me when it's an issue. This particular one, it's boarded up because every time we try to do something else, another window is busted out. Don't believe me? Pull the police reports. I mean, my God.
Well,
so, like I said, we are going to renovate it until we decide either it's going back on septic or it's going on city sewer. I am not opening it up. You want to fine me $100 a day for keeping junkies, hookers, homeless, and criminals out of it from constantly destroying every time I put something in it? Go for it. I have no problem with that at this point. I am not going to continue to leave it open when the city cannot do its job and remove those who constantly break into it.
okay, if that's your position, sir, then we may as well make a motion and move forward because you're not telling us anything that's going to change.
I just told you. You don't seem to understand. Septic and sewer.
That's not our issue.
No, it is your issue because neither one can go forward without the utilities department and the city getting the permitting and approving it.
That's not a code issue. Not a code issue, sir.
Well, like I said,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion in the case of 19-531. Like to accept staff recommendation, fine the property $100 per day for each day it's not in compliance.
good. It'll be down tomorrow.
I'll blow that son of a bitch up.
Okay, do I have a second? Motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, moving right along. Let's see. Complied. Complied. Next item is 19-638.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer of the City of Cocoa. The property address is 25 Parkway Street. I'm submitting photos I took during my visits to the property. They actually depict the property during those visits. During my inspection, I found the property in violation of rental business tax receipt, section 12-1 A and B. During this case, I've visited the site a total of 13 times. I've spoken to a representative of the property in reference to the violations. I've checked the property appraiser's records to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. Notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since March 16th, 2020, and brought this case before the code board as I've been unable to gain compliance. Staff recommends in case 19-638 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $25 be imposed for each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved. I believe there's somebody here for the property tonight.
No one? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add, this is a simple business tax receipt. This property is a rental. The owner doesn't reside there, and it's been used in the past as a rental, so they're required to get a business rental tax receipt. They have not gotten one, and it's actually a simple process to get.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion on case 19638, we found in violation, business tax receipt, and that the violation will be $25 a day until it's in compliance.
Okay.
Second.
Motion on the floor with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is passed. Next item is 2019-59058.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. The property address is 531 Blake Avenue. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately depict the property during those visits. During my inspection, I found the property in violation of accumulation of trash and litter, section 6900B1, A through D. During this case, I've visited the site a total of 10 times. I haven't found much progress in the way of correcting the violations. I've not been able to get in contact with the property owner. I've checked the property appraiser's records to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. The notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working this case since January 2nd, 2020, and have brought this case before the board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case 2019-59058 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $25 be imposed for each day the violations remain until compliance is achieved.
Steve, can't we?
Yes, sir.
Can't we just send Western Waste to pick that stuff up?
Actually, what we would have to do is we would have to post it as an abatement, and then our abatement contractor would pick it up. Western Waste won't just go pick up that because it's green waste and there's not a building on it. Right, and the only reason we cited this is because this is a continuous problem on this lot. So rather than do the abatement as we've done in the past, we elected to take it to the code board to at least get a fine and a finding of facts where it would at least be a repeat violator, because this continues quite frequently at this location. As you can see, the pile has already grown from what it was in the beginning, and you can't even see the tires because they're covered up.
And you can't get a hold of the owner.
Correct, but we're looking for the finding of fact for a later date, and it's still subject to an abatement.
Motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion on this case 2019-59058, the final violation, and then the violation will carry a fine of $100 a day until the compliance is achieved.
Okay,
Second.
second, Mr. Green? Oh, over here is a second.
Yes, sir.
It's hard to tell who's saying things, yeah? Okay, motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Or none, and that motion passes. Okay. That brings us to item 15, case number 19-529.
Okay, I was gonna say I have a case number of 2020-4075, and the property address is 123 Factory Street.
This one?
Maybe a typo.
Item 11.
Oh, sorry, I stand corrected, I missed a page in there. Case number 2020-4075.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. Property address is 123 Factory Street. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property, and they accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of business tax receipt, section 12-1, A and B, storing junk or autos, section 6902, B1 and 2. During this case, I visited the site a total of 10 times. And I've contacted the owner or I've spoken to the property owner with references in order how to correct the violations. I've checked the property's appraiser's records to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. Notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since January 22nd, 2020, and brought this before the board as I've been unable to gain compliance. Staff recommends in case 2020-4075 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $50 be imposed each day the violations remain until compliance is achieved.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add, this is actually in the heart of Cocoa. It's in the federal consent decree area. Zoning allowed in that area is specific to the consent decree. the zoning for a landscape company and for the use that he's using is not acceptable in that area. He did contact the office today and said he could not come to the meeting because he had to self-quarantine. I wanted to make that known to let the board decide whether they wanted to continue on or table it to next month. But this is a major issue as we got residential properties all around this lot. And I don't know if you remember this property, but we've had this before the board because a tow company was operating there and a car dealership had junk cars, and it's supposed to be going back to the residents and not so much out towards, other businesses and stuff like that. So it is a serious issue, but I did want to make it known that the owner did call at 3 o'clock today and state he could not make it due to COVID-19. So I wanted to put that on the record.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
move the table.
Move to table. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. We'll table this one until the next meeting, whenever they, September, hopefully.
September 17th.
Keeping my fingers crossed.
Next item, 2020-7289.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. The property address is 820 Rosa L. Jones. Submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately depict the property during those visits. During my first inspection, I found the property in violation of storing outdoors, Section 6900B11, boarded up buildings, Section 6900B5, windows, door, and frame, Section 61003M, protective treatment, Section 61003B, roof and drainage, Section 61003G, failure to secure structure, Section 6900B7, permit required, Appendix A, Article 15, Section 2A, and sidewalks and driveways, Section 61001C. During this case, I visited the site a total of 6 times and found some progress made to correct the violations. I've spoken with a representative with the property owner as well as a representative on the property in reference to the violations. I've checked the property appraiser's record to show ownership. I sent this for hearing on 7/31/2020 after finding the property remains in noncompliance. The notice was sent certified and posted. I've been working on this case since February 5th, 2020, and brought this case before the board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case 2020-7289 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $200 be imposed for each day the violations remain until compliance is achieved. The representative for the property is here tonight.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is a repeat violation?
This is not a repeat violation.
Is this a new owner within the last few years?
As far as when they took ownership, I can't tell you for sure.
Because this was before us, and they had liens, and we gave them one heck of a deal to keep that place out. That's all I remember.
And Mr. Chair, that is correct, but it was over 5 years ago, and therefore it would not qualify to be a repeat violations. These are all considered new now because we passed that 5-year threshold.
5 years is nothing.
Oh, time flies, right? Okay, you'll need to be sworn in, please, sir.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your name and address for the record.
Wazir Mohammed, 14828 LSA Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32828.
You can take the microphone off if you'd like to.
Okay, well, there's quite a few problem areas here. What's your intent?
When Steve first sent us the notice, we had already applied for permits to redo the whole building. And I told him that. And I sent him the emails where we sent we were dealing with the city and the code enforcement and building department. As of last week, we just got the last, we sent them a whole harmless. So they said the permit should be coming out anytime. But we redo the whole building. The windows on the other side where the apartment is, the reason they all boarded up, every time we change them, they get broken because the people over there just throw stones at them. The sidewalk on between the two buildings, if you see, it was nice and grassy and everything else, but the amount of cars that pass over there, they break it up. So we applied to put a fence, we have the fence out to fence in the whole building and everything, so should be seeing the whole building being transformed as soon as we get the permits.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I would also like to ask Mr. Wazir, since he's here, the area that goes down Knight Street that passes alongside of Emma Jewell,
Right.
okay, when we met with your representatives in engineering and that was asked to be used for traffic, it was denied.
It wasn't denied.
No, it was absolutely denied.
No,
I sat there.
You guys told us, we applied to vacate, and you said you didn't have the authority to vacate, that belongs to the utilities.
No, when you wanted to turn it into office buildings and we met with your engineers, it was told that you would have to access from the front, that you were not going to be able to go down that side street because it would create too much traffic for that local neighborhood next to a school.
No, if you go back in the minutes.
No, this was a meeting with planning and zoning,
Right, I was there.
Public Works, and the engineers.
Yeah, I was there.
And it was distinctly said that that is a big concern of you having an office building and using the residential road as access to the back of the building. I just want to bring that up because that's a concern, because there was items moved which made that a dead-end road. And that's the way that they're going in with equipment, and there is a school next door. They do not have an approval letter from planning and zoning to proceed. The building issues are being handled with the building department, but as far as zoning and usage, they need to go through and get approval, site plan, and everything approved, which has not been done, correct?
All that is.
No, has it been approved?
We know it's not approved. Nothing
Okay,
is
that's
approved.
the only thing I wanted on the record. Thank you.
Everything is in your receipt waiting to approve. And further to the meeting.
Again, it started, it has not been approved, you have not been given the authorization, and I'm going to state in front of this board that I have an issue with using Knight Street to increase traffic through a residential neighborhood next to a school, and to my knowledge, that has not been approved by the zoning department. So the fact that you tore out what actually made that a dead end, that actually needs to cease, and you cannot use that as a traffic thoroughfare. I'm just stating for the record, sir, that's all I wanted to put on the record. Thank you.
Knight Street comes into our property. It wasn't like that before. That street went all the way out to wherever it went, all behind the building. It's now as the buildings came up, you guys put some barriers over there. Somebody took it out. We don't know who took it out. After the last meeting with upstairs with you guys, the big beams came out. We don't know who took it out.
Yeah,
We pleaded with you to get the beams out, and you guys were saying you really don't know who put the beams there. If it's traffic, if it's county, if it's city, if it's state, you don't know who put the beams there. But that street dead ends into our property, so that comes into our property. If you watch, we even own the lot next to tonight. That lot is ours. So all that.
I was there for the whole meeting. I totally understand. But that lot is residential.
Yes,
and if
we
you
know
want to
that.
drive into
And
that
you guys
lot,
said-
you can use Knight Street, but you
And
can't.
you said in the meeting, we cannot use that lot as a parking lot. We have to rezone it. And you guys said it would take a year to get it rezoned.
Okay, so
Let me
you,
finish.
but wait,
Let me
your
finish my next
wait, I want to clear up your testimony.
Finish my next
So
part.
your testimony is that there was a barricade at the end of the dead-end street.
It's not a
and it-
dead-end
And
street.
it magically
The street-
disappeared
the
so
street-
that you
the
could go
street
in
ends at
there
our
and start
property.
doing work in the back.
The street ends in our property.
That's not what I asked you. There were beams that blocked that street from going through,
Where?
making it
To
a
where?
dead-end street.
To where?
Your testimony is that you didn't remove that. They just magically removed
We didn't
so
move
that
it.
you can go back in the back with dumpsters and heavy equipment and begin working.
No. We have not, since we bought that building, we have not done anything to violate any ordinance, anything. This is the first time we've been brought before the city about violation. And we are addressing them. Even before Steve sent us the.
Mr. Wazir, Mr. Wazir,
Even
see
that-
the road?
See that container there? I don't know who owns that. That's not mine.
It's on your property.
People, yes, it's on my property. If you watch now, there was two.
Okay, but they were,
was
no, let me finish. They were not there. You can see where the road ended. There was beams put in so that people could not tread.
If you continue all the way straight behind there to that wall down there, that was a street.
I'm just putting it on the record that I have an issue with you driving heavy equipment and stuff down Knight Street in a residential neighborhood
What heavy
next to a
equipment?
school.
What have you,
That's all I'm doing. Now they can hear the rest of the case, they can go on.
what have you equipment, sir?
Huh?
What have you equipment?
Somebody had to pull that
Somebody
dumpster in there.
Somebody dumped that.
But it's your property, so I gotta say somebody's you. And since you didn't show up for the meeting that we scheduled.
Which meeting?
And I waited there for an hour, I'm gonna have to assume
No,
it was
no,
still
no,
you.
no. I have never missed a meeting that you guys have scheduled.
Officer Murdoch can tell you, we sat there in the front of your building for an hour waiting for you.
Mr.
My
Chair?
concern is the safety of the kids.
Mr. Chair?
This is not going anywhere.
No,
so,
it's not. We're gonna have to move on, and
That's-
I have a question and I have a concern. In photo number 9, were those fuel tanks or oil tanks there, those two cylinders?
That, I told the guy who cleans up the yard. to
Wait,
call a
hold
tow
on,
truck.
I'm just asking a question.
To call
What
a-
are they?
I don't know what they are. I told the guy who cleans up the yard to call a tow truck and get everything out of there. There was 2 of these containers, one half remained because they were breaking it up to move it, and those tanks, and then the car is gone. But otherwise, there's nothing else in the back there.
'Cause my concern is this is supposed to be a residential neighborhood.
And we applied to put a fence and put a gate right where,
But
right where the grass is.
what I'm saying
Does
is,
this here move back and forth, this container, or is it just me?
Yes, it has moved.
It has been shifted, I think, as an effort. When I went by one day, there was a 3/4 ton truck that was hooked up to it and was tugging at it.
Yeah, I'm really not sure where to go with this. There obviously are things that need to be
well, Mr. Chair, I understand that, this is code enforcement meeting, but just the whole safety aspect of this property being literally less than 100 yards from a school, less than 100 yards from residential neighborhood. We have whatever these containers are. As far as I'm concerned, they're fuel containers or oil containers. That's a whole safety issue. And some kind of OSHA violation somewhere, somehow.
Do we know anything about what the city's doing with permits and variances and zoning and all of that stuff?
The meeting that we had was several months ago, and to my knowledge, there was no permits pulled immediately after that because there was no site plan approved, there was no approval given. So they're waiting on that. Now, if he's pulled some permits now to secure the building or paint or fix things, that could be, but I don't know that he was even given permission to turn it into office space.
It was.
I don't know.
2011. It was approved to be professional office right in the.
No, that's not what I'm saying. They told him in 2011 that he could put offices there. That's 9 years ago. You still need to submit a site plan and show everything you intend to do on a property. That has not been approved. So all this other work needs to be done, and I agree with Mr. Roberts. Those things have not always been there. They were just recently placed there. We can't keep doing this work. And my concern, again, is with the school next door and kids getting out of school and going down that street, and he's got large trucks and stuff moving up and down the street when there's no site plan approval. So that's my issue. Steve's cosmetic issues can be addressed with permits, and that's what the board's here to see. But I want Mr. Wazir to understand, he does not have a site plan approval to continue to modify or redevelop that land. And it needs to cease until he gets that, which is,
Nobody's modifying the land. Everything is implementing, everything is waiting on the bureaucracy of the county or the city.
I would just like to see him get the proper permits and get the proper site
Proper
plan
permit, we have proper
before he
plans, we have proper
continues.
drawings, we have everything.
Well,
And I'm willing to submit, based on the pictures that are shown, that all these violations do exist, and then the board needs to rule on those violations.
well, I hear what you're saying, but to me, it's putting the cart before the horse to start painting and doing all these things if you don't even know what the status of the building is. So,
Well, that's the purpose of asking Mr. Wazir the questions I did, because I don't believe any of this work should be taking place until all those proper areas should be issued. So that's what I'm saying. But at
Mr.
the
Chair,
same
with that
time,
being said, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before you approve, this property was approved as professional office. We did apply based on a lot next door to get parking. When we had a meeting upstairs, they came and they told us that you see where the container is there? That half of the street on this way, it belongs to the state, and we need to apply to vacate it. So they said that would take a long time. So, okay, so then we said, okay, we will amend the plans just for the parking, what we don't own, or we own, sorry. And then the lot, they told us next door, we cannot do commercial parking there, we have to get it rezoned. So that will take a year. So all this thing is being in the works to apply for. We really want to fix the place. We really want to fix the place up. But what he's saying about bringing trucks in and out and that kind of thing is not true. We don't know who the thing is, but give us till tomorrow. Tomorrow, the whole yard going to be clear. But we need time. We need time for the permit to get approved before you start saying, okay, I'm going to fine you $100 or $200 a day. Let your system give us the permits, and then we do the work. That's all we ask.
Any violations other than this right here on that property? There's no other violations other than what we see right here?
Well, what I listed, there's boarded up buildings, broken windows, it's been on again, off again, secured, outdoor storage, damage to the sidewalk, driveway area. There's been a junk vehicle there on the corner of the property.
So if we give
Paint.
them enough time to get this all cleared up.
I think probably anybody could, given enough time. I'm just not sure what enough time is, as far as from 2011, the first time they were going to start working towards a business building, to 2020. I'm not sure what kind of time frame they're looking for beyond that.
We bought the building in 2004. We bought the building. We had our first meeting over here. I think we got it approved in 2016 or 2017, right in this office, right in this meeting, right in this council meeting. I'll send you a copy. I will email you a copy of the approval that the property was turned from apartment complex into professional office. I went to Viera, asked them why it wasn't changed the zoning. They said no, only when you finished, then you will see the zoning change from apartment complex to professional office. So it is approved for professional office.
how about if if the board were to instruct you to come before us regularly with a schedule of how things are moving forward?
I appreciate that, no problem.
You prepared to do that?
Yes.
And we could in that way extend you the time to get these permits and these zonings and all of these things that need to happen, but they aren't going to happen in 30 days. We all know that.
Right.
So we've done this in the past with other buildings. I understand this is an ongoing situation, but I also don't think it's prudent to fix up a building that may eventually be not approved for the purpose that the gentleman has. So I think that would that be acceptable to the city?
the city has no objection to that, and that's kind of what we've been asking for. But when you have a meeting and you're told that all this has to be changed on a site plan, this has to be done, and you don't, and then you rip out bollards that block off a road and begin working in the back, that's what needs to cease. I agree with you. Let him come in and give us updates on what is going on with planning and zoning, and let him show that he's got a site plan, because I do agree with everything you just said, but my concern was the safety of the children on that residential roadway.
Okay, well then.
So I would prefer him not do all that work until he gets all his stuff in order.
Mr. Chair, if
To
I
go
could,
there.
if I could, to a certain extent, it's not this board's concern whether he has a site plan, what the approved use of the building is, what his redevelopment plans are. This board's concern is compliance with codes as they now stand. If this were a vacant lot with no plans or no hopes for short-term redevelopment, we would not allow junk to be stored on the property. We wouldn't allow weeds to grow above 24 inches. These things are happening. They can be remedied with or without a site plan, with or without redevelopment, whether it's an office building, whether it's residential, whether it's torn down to the ground. I don't think that we can continue to allow those tanks and that dumpster, that junk, to be that close to a residential neighborhood and to a school. The people who live there deserve better, and I think we can do better for them.
That will
Okay,
be going tomorrow.
I totally agree with Mr. Green.
I think
And I'd like to make a
you are
motion.
recognized for a motion.
In the case of 2020-7289, I recommend we accept staff recommendations of fine the property $200 per day for each day that the property is not within compliance.
And give them 30 days? Is that the timeframe?
I apologize. Yes, ma'am, and give them 30 days to correct the violations.
Okay. You don't want to go with the schedule?
No, sir.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. Go ahead.
How's he gonna get all this done in 30 days?
Can't happen.
Well, the thing about it, give him 30 days, and the process is, if he wants this, he's gonna come back and he's gonna work with code enforcement and see that he's making progress. When you own a property and you have these things and you don't know where they came from, so there's no problem with you taking this stuff off your property.
Well, Mr. Roberts, we need a permit to put a gate.
You don't need a permit to haul stuff off your property.
No, we get the stuff out, but we need a permit to put a gate so no more stuff wouldn't come back.
That's the purpose of setting a schedule. We've done this before, where the owner sets their own criteria and then comes to us to show that they are meeting that criteria. Every month, something is checked off. And because 30 days isn't reasonable to accomplish this list, sure, he can move the tanks tomorrow morning. Maybe put up a fence that keeps the school kids from wandering into the property.
To that point, Chairman, there actually was a fence in existence there that was a barrier. It had steel girders in the ground. That was pulled up. The area where he's talking about putting a gate now, that was removed without any kind of permit, no demolition permit or anything. Digging up the concrete steel girders out of the ground. He claims it wasn't him, but they were dug up, they were removed from the property.
Okay,
That
well-
was the barrier from the
I
neighborhood.
had no gate there. Any kid could have walked in.
What I'm saying is the existing barrier would have done the same thing as the gate you're proposing. now.
But there was, okay, when it had the girders, it's empty lot on the side, our lot, there's the parking over there. Right on the outside of that blue thing.
That's a different piece of property, totally relevant to what we're speaking about here.
Well, we do have a motion on the floor, and we do have a second. So we'll call the question and see where it goes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Any others? I'm alone on my opposed. Okay, well then I guess the motion does pass. And my suggestion to you is to work as closely as you can with the code officer to accomplish these things that need to be done. And as they are done, let him know.
I have been keeping email contact with him on the permits and that kind of stuff and what is going on. So he has been appraised of what's the progress of what's happening.
Sir, you've been found in violation of all these.
I'm cool.
Work with the city, we
I will.
can knock each one down.
But most of the stuff, I mean, clearing out is nothing, but the rest of the stuff really, for the windows and the gate and everything else, needs a permit.
Yeah, I'm sure Steve will work something else.
All right.
And moving forward, once you're in compliance and the property is restored, you can come back, you can submit possibly a lien reduction request and come back before the board and they can make a adjustment for you at that point.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to where I was earlier. Skipping that page. Item 15 is case 19-529.
The property address is going to be 2600 Clear Lake Road. For the record, I am Katie Carver, Code Enforcement Officer. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately show the condition of the property during those visits. During my inspections, I found the property in violation of roofs and drainage, grading and drainage, accessory structures, sidewalks and driveway, protective treatment, minimum maintenance to a structure, storing junk or autos, and permit required for fences. During this case, the property was visited a total of 8 times. I personally visited the property 8 times and found little progress to be made to correct the violations. I've checked the property appraiser's records to show ownership, and I've made contact with the property owner who directed me to their property manager. I've been working on this case since December 12th, 2019. On January 31st, 2020, I spoke to the previous property manager on the phone and went over all the violations. July 15th, 2020, 6 months later, I met with the current property manager at the property and went over all the violations. I sent this for hearing on August 6, 2020, after finding the property remains in non-compliance. The notice was sent certified mailed and posted onto the property. I brought this case before the board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case number 20-529 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $200 be imposed for each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved.
Okay, are these apartments or rentals units?
Yes, sir, that's Clear Lake Pines. It's an apartment complex.
They're not condominiums?
No, sir.
No, and it's the one next to Walmart.
Is there different units that we were in violation, or
It's the entire complex.
the different places got different things that are on this list here?
The entire complex has all the violations that I listed.
Right.
Yes, sir.
There's different buildings that all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, some have more severe roof damage, some have painting, some of the fences have been fixed, but a lot of them haven't, so you have stuff like this all through the property. But it's all one property, and it's not divided into units, so we cite the entire grounds for all of these.
Okay, and when we've got a junk vehicle, do we look at ownership of the vehicle, or are we looking at the apartment complex?
The violations go towards the property owner of the complex, so it would go towards the property owner.
And we typically ask the complex, so that we're not in there patrolling for vehicles, that they need to post their own tow signs and remove junk derelict vehicles from their own property, which they can do by posting with a tow company and having a tow company come in and remove that stuff. But typically, we don't just drive through and look for the owner and try to tow it ourselves, because there's so many units in there, it would take forever.
Right, okay, this obviously isn't gonna go anywhere. Okay, if you're both going to speak, you'll both need to be sworn in, please.
Hi, I'm Counsel Amory Geary, so my.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Ashley Waterhouse, current property manager for Clear Lake
You
Pines.
will need to be sworn in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ashley Waterhouse. I'm the current property manager for Clear Lake Pines. It's located at 2600 Clear Lake Road.
Okay, do you want your counsel to present, or are you going to?
I'm gonna present, then I'll turn over to my clients.
Okay,
My name's Amory Geary. I am in-house counsel for Wells Boys and Girls Property Management. We are the organization responsible for the property management of Clear Lake Pines Apartments LLC. Our already presented Ms. Waterhouse, who is the property manager on site for Clear Lake Pines. I guess we found out about these violations at the beginning of this year. What's been going on is there's been some holdup on our end, and part of that's due to the COVID in the last few months. We had a permit assistant who was helping us obtain permits. She's no longer with us. We had to replace that individual. We've had some lines of communications that we're getting crossed and trying to get in touch with our regional property manager to get approval for some of the projects that we need to do. We have been attempting to contact Ms. Carver, Officer Carver. As of late, the last month or so, since the last hearing was scheduled and it was later continued, that we have been working closely with Ms. Carver. My client will talk more in detail about that. We're trying to do as much as possible to bring everything in compliance and be as cooperative as possible and, make this property the best that it can be. As to the towing of the vehicles, I'm going to turn that over to my client. She can address the different points that need to be done, what we've been doing, and what can be completed, and then later on we're going to probably ask for a schedule of time to complete some of the larger projects that they're not going to be able to be completed in 30 days.
Hello. Let's see. As far as the towing of the vehicles, we have gotten a majority of a lot of the vehicles picked up. A lot of them were expired tags because some tenants could not, for some reason, renew them. I am down to now 2 vehicles. One was the black Ford Honda that you did see on the picture. There is another vehicle, a blue Altima, that is next to that as well. They will be being picked up tomorrow. The owner of the black Honda was under the impression if you took the wheels off, your vehicle cannot get towed. So he has been spoken to, and we found out it does not belong to him. It is a friend, and he has explained, and I spoke to the tow gentleman today. He will be back tomorrow. The problem that we have been coming across with tow companies is that legally I cannot have anybody coming out to a private property without their tow company signs on there. And unfortunately, we have not been approved by the owner to put them up because we have had a problem in the past of tow companies coming through there and illegally running tags and towing vehicles. But we did find somebody that is working with us, and they will be out tomorrow to take care of those. We have begun pressure washing. Pressure washing did start this week. Like Anne-Marie said, we did get shut down. We are still currently shut down because of COVID. My office has been shut down since March 16th. We have lost employees to it. Our vendors have been shut down. It's hard to get deliveries, so the ball and the doors are starting to open up again. I've been reaching out to contractors to get the fencings done, and I believe that we asked, because permits are needed for that, we're seeing if we're able to pull a permit per building, because there is a total of 16 buildings, rather than per unit, which is 120. And I'm aware of all of this. I came onto board at the very beginning of November. And I've seen, and I mentioned to Katie that I had just gotten done having a meeting with some maintenance, because unfortunately we do not have on-site maintenance, and we have to rotate, but we are trying. I mean, Katie came over today, and I was outside pressure washing and removing algae, because I know it needs to get done, and that's what we want to do. We want to comply, get this place back up, because it really is a great property. It's got great potential in there. We're getting some of the fences, the enclosures around the dumpsters to get taken care of. The problem, I think, with the abandoned vehicles was people were getting used to, but now that they see somebody is on board and we are watching them and making it apparent and telling them we do not do that any more. So a lot of people are removing them and understanding. So luckily, I think we had quite a few cars. But now I even drove around today checking tags, and we're just down to those 2. The roofs are being done. Building 13 is complete. Building 16 got completed last week, and building 4 and 5 notice of commencement has been filed today with JT Roofing. So,
Can I speak to you for a minute?
Yes, sir.
driveways, is it all a mess? Does that have to all be done over?
Okay, so the grading and drainage, that's going to be out front by a bus stop. I have in pictures from today that I could submit.
So, I mean, it's small areas, you're not talking about going in and paving.
No, sir, it's small areas
No.
that need to be repaired.
Right.
Yeah.
And this one area that she's telling you about isn't even concrete. There's a broken pipe that keeps washing out, and it's next to the bus stop on the sidewalk. And all the dirt, because it's on a hill, is coming out and washing out onto the sidewalk. And Public Works has to consistently go clean it. They get calls from people waiting for the bus. So they originally threw some dirt over top of it, but until the pipe and stuff is all fixed, it's going to continue to wash out.
I've
So.
driven in there before, and it's kind of a large area. right?
Yes.
They had to pave that whole thing.
Oh, no, it's just certain areas where the blacktop has begun to get some potholes or chip away.
Take care of but not big problem.
Yeah, no, that would have to be a huge undertaking, and it would definitely be a lot more than 30 days. And I would just like to mention to the board, and I'll let her clarify, she is actually a newer property manager. So there was a time when there was a different property manager who is no longer there. Since she's come on, she's been in much better contact with Katie, but she is a newer property manager, and I just wanted to put that on the record, and she's here.
Let me ask a question. You kind of touched on it. Is the ownership responsive to your requests for funding of these projects?
They are, it's just, they're just so busy, it's just, we just gotta tie them down and get, talk to them. So we were able to talk to our regional property manager today. She cleared the towing of the vehicles issue, and also with the fencing. As to the washout, I know when we purchased the property, just some background, there was, I think around that area, it was actually causing flooding into our units, and we had done, at that time, we built a retaining wall. It looks like we have to go back and fix that, but that is going to be quite an undertaking. Also, there's some, the parking curbs, we have to put in more parking curbs because that's been causing a problem where the tenants are, because they're broken, they're driving up onto the grass, and that's causing a problem. So I don't know if that requires permitting, or if we just go purchase them and replace them ourselves.
No, because they're not required. If you want to have parking bumpers at the end of the parking, you can do that on your own. But if you submitted your plan, you wouldn't be required to have them. And that's actually part of what we're discussing either. So those you can do as you need to. We're not concerned with those.
Ma'am, you see how many violations are there, right? Have you got an idea how long it's gonna take to fix all this stuff?
Well, right now we're working on the roofing. There's also the fascia. We have to paint the fascia, but we're repairing all the roofs. So as we repair the roofs, we can paint the fascia. Because you can't just paint the fascia and then go fix the roof, then you have to repaint the fascia. So there's some steps we have to watch. We're talking to our contractors right now to see how long it will take. As to the towing the vehicles, we should have that done by the end of this week, tomorrow. Pressure washing, we're gonna need about 14 days to finish.
I think the washout we talked about, the problem over there, I guess originally when the building was structured, I guess on that part of the hill is no dirt, it's strictly sand that was dredged over. And the pipe that is coming out now is slowly showing more because of more erosion, but it's not an irrigation pipe because we have no irrigation on the property. And we have filled it, but I guess because there's nothing to hold the sand tight enough, it's just going downhill. So I think we have to look into another kind of retention cement wall to securely hold it, or it's just, because that's what, it's like a downhill. It's constantly falling down. It's very loose sand.
This looks to me like another perfect opportunity to set up a schedule of
Yes.
things to be accomplished.
Staff would not object to that if the board wanted to give 90 or 120 days, but have them come in and do 30-day updates. Staff would be acceptable to that.
I think that works good, and you can use this as the baseline of your schedule. And as you finish things, call the code officer, say this one's done. If it's however many roofings you got to do, they're not cited separately, so When the roofs are all done, then you call and say the roofs are all done. But in the meantime, put a date next to each of these items, and then come back next month and show us where you are. And we can, at that point, if we need to, adjust the number of days and so forth.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion on this case, please. 19-529, we found in violation, and that the violation will be $200 a day until compliance. We're going to change the 30 days to 109, how many days?
120.
120. Okay, we're gonna make it 120 days to complete all this work, and one reason we're trying to help you with this also is we've got a season right now that can really hold you up doing work and all. So you have to work with our city to get all this stuff done. But everything can be done and worked out, so I'm gonna give you 120 days, but you got a violation, and it's $200 a day for fines, so you wanna get this taken care of.
I'll second.
Did you want 30-day updates, Mr. Brown? Did you want 30-day updates?
30-day updates.
Yeah, I think 30-day updates with the city of Cocoa, that you tell them, you know, what the progress of your work is going to be.
Well, with us. 30-day update to the board.
Out to the board here?
I think so.
What's the city think about that?
The city doesn't have an objection. If it's a hardship for them and they want to submit a 30-day update and have us present it to the board at each meeting, we could do that as well.
Okay, I think that would be fair enough.
Whichever is easier, I guess, for you to present it to the code officer, she can present it to us.
So we'll put that in the motion that a 30-day update will be given to the city and then presented to the code enforcement board on Friday.
So just for clarification, we're going to communicate with Officer Carver in the meantime, or are we contacting the board? Who's going to be our point of contact for
Stay
updates?
in contact with your code officer of
Okay.
record, which is Ms. Carver.
Okay, thank you.
And then for the purpose of all this, since there's so much here, I would start on everything that doesn't require a permit and that can be done easily, and then work up on the harder stuff, because permits and stuff are going to take a while. You may have to submit different plans, and you can work on that too, but I mean, I would work on correcting, and then that way the list is chiseled away, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Because rather importantly, as something is corrected, and code officer signs off on that item, that reduces the fine that's potentially going to go along. We got a second yet?
Yes.
Got a second?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you both for being here, and we'll see you again before too long. Okay. Next item is 20-582.
Property address 1860 Baylor Court. For the record, I am Katie Carver, Code Enforcement Officer. I am submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately show the condition of the property during those visits. During my inspections, I found the property in violation of storing outdoors, boarded up buildings, protective treatment, and parking in the yard, which has since been complied. During this case, the property was visited a total of 7 times. I personally visited the property 7 times and found no progress made to correct the violations. I've checked the property appraiser's record to show for ownership and haven't been able to make contact with the property owner. I sent this for hearing on August 6, 2020, after finding the property remains in non-compliance. The notice was sent certified mailed and posted to the property. I have been working on this case since January 28, 2020, and brought this case before the board as I have been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case number 20-582 that the owner be found in violation and a fine of $75 be imposed for each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I believe Ms. Carver has photos from today on hard copy that she can
Okay, to be clear, the storage, is this items that are under the carport here?
Yes, sir.
And along the side, if you look by the backyard, there's a small
Okay,
pile.
and what is the boarded up building?
That's going to be the shutter on the window right there. In that
Yeah, I think that's allowed right now since we're in hurricane season.
No.
Only if there's an imminent threat of a storm. So the moment that they say that
There
we're
is,
under a
there's
warning-
one gonna be here this weekend.
Okay, well, it wasn't when we got to say it. So, yes, if there's a storm, they can put their shutters up, obviously. So-
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought once they went up in hurricane season, they didn't need to come down until the season ends.
That's not what the code says. What the code actually says is that you can place them up during the threat of a storm. It doesn't say that you can bring them at the beginning of hurricane season, just leave them up all the entire hurricane season. But if there's a storm, we have no problem with that, but this has been going on and there's other windows that were boarded. If that's why they put it up, that's fine. We have no problem with waiting until after hurricane season. Our purpose in that is egress. If there's any
Right.
kind of fire or anything going, you have to have egress out of a first story. So you don't want to block any of your egress in case there's a house fire or anything. So if there's a storm, absolutely, we're not here to, hurt their property value.
There's one coming, check your weather app.
I didn't hear that today, so.
And I do have photos from today if you guys would like to see them.
Think that. This is the owner. So, ma'am, if you wish to speak, you'll need to be sworn in, please.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And do please state your name and address for the record.
Catherine Taylor,
You're gonna have to pick that up and hold it.
Catherine Taylor, 1860 Baylor Court.
Okay. What can you tell us about the stuff that's stored outside and the painting that needs to be done?
Most of the stuff that was stored outside has been moved, and I agree it does need to be painted. The thing is, I was in a car accident in August of last year, and I had surgery in January of this year, and I'm still under a doctor's care. So I'm trying to get it taken care of. The stuff that's outside on the carport, I can have that cleaned up, and the things on the windows, I can have those taken off tomorrow.
Okay.
I do need a little time in order to paint it.
All this stuff that's under the carport, can that go somewhere else? You got a place to put that stuff?
I can put it in the shed that's in the backyard.
She has a shed in the back. I'm sorry, I was just saying she does have a shed in the backyard.
Okay. And the painting, you have somebody that can help you with that, or do you need somebody?
My sons are actually going to come over and try to help me because I can't pick anything up over 10 pounds, and I'm still in physical therapy because I can't lift my arms very high.
Okay, understand. And the reason I ask that, we sometimes can find some help at one of the churches. They have people that volunteer to do things, and that's one of the things they can do. With the weather we're having, it's difficult. They got to work around the raindrops, but you don't have a terrible large amount to get done there.
Like I said, I agree, it does need to be painted.
Okay.
I have the paint. I bought the paint, and I bought the pressure washer to pressure wash it and get it all done. It's just getting my sons over there to help do it.
Okay.
Anybody here has grown sons, they know how that goes.
Yeah,
They
I
have
do.
their own lives, and
I understand that perfectly.
And Mr. Chair, if it helps, we would amend our order to 60 days if that would help her organize everything, get everything together. Plus, it would get us past the storm before she has to take down anything off of her windows.
Protective treatment, would that just be the trim up there?
Yeah, that's the bare wood or anywhere that there's chipping, painting.
Okay.
Peeling,
the
faded,
whole house
mildew
does need
paint.
to be painted.
Okay, but I asked that for the simple fact of that's probably one of those things that could be knocked out quick, because they're not saying that the whole house needs to be painted.
Oh,
Just, I
okay.
mean, maybe sanded and put some paint up there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just anywhere where there's bare wood, peeling, mold or mildew, and sometimes that can be cleaned and painted. But if the protective treatment's on the house, even if it needs a little touch-up, that's not what we're citing. We're citing the bare stuff. We don't want it to rot on you or cause an issue.
Well, the reason that is like that is because there was another carport on there at one
I
time.
remember that.
And when the hurricane came through last year, it blew it down.
Yep.
And that was the end of August, beginning of September, and that was when I was in my car accident. I was in a car accident August the 30th of last year, and that's when the carport blew away.
Yeah, we just need some paint on it so that the wood don't end up rotting on you and causing an issue.
Okay. Can certainly do that.
Okay. Who wants to do this? Give me 60 days on it, and
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
In the case 20582, I move that we find the homeowner in violation with 60 days cure with a $75 per day fine imposed until compliance is achieved.
I'll second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? If none, and you got your work cut out for you. As you complete any one of these projects, give the officer a call, and she'll take that off the list, and then you're clear one at a time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is number 19, item 20-927.
Property address is 1146 Lake Drive. For the record, I am Katie Carver, Code Enforcement Officer. I'm submitting photos that I took during my visits to the property. They accurately show the condition of the property during those visits. During my inspections, I found the property in violation of temporary storage, business tax receipt, accumulation of trash and litter, and permit required. During this case, the property was visited a total of 3 times. I personally visited the property 3 times and found no progress made to correct the violations. I've checked the property appraiser's record to show for ownership, and I've spoken to the owner in reference to the violations. I sent this for hearing on August 6, 2020, after finding the property remains in non-compliance. The notice was sent certified mailed and posted to the property. I have been working on this case since June 30th, 2020. I observed storage containers being dropped off at the property after the owner met with planning and zoning, and they specifically directed him what needed to be done before he was allowed to do business on the property. He knowingly ignored what planning and zoning directed and started business anyways. I brought this case before the board as I've been unable to gain full compliance. Staff recommends in case number 20-927, the owner be found in violation and given 10 days to correct the violation. Also, a fine of $250 be imposed for each day the violation remains until compliance is achieved.
Okay. Katie, what's the permit required? What's that for?
The storage containers, they need permits to have those. And then business tax receipt.
Well, that's self-explanatory.
Yes, sir.
Permit is for the containers?
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, she is correct. The owner, Brian, came in, met with the entire staff of Public Works, Planning and Zoning, Code Enforcement, everybody to discuss his site plan to open a roofing company. As you can see by the property, it's undeveloped. He was required to put in paving, parking, landscape, drainage, and Public Works definitely wanted him to put in something on the side where he dropped all those containers as it's grass going out to Peachtree, and they just redid their stormwater. He basically said he wasn't going to do it, and he left, and we didn't hear from him for 6-8 months. And then one day, here comes these trucks, and they dropped off 3 dumpsters, 2 cargo containers full of stuff, and now they're running a roofing business in and out, and they have no permission. They haven't developed the land. It's raw, and they just continue to work. And we went over and talked to him to ask him what they were doing. They said, oh, it'd be temporary, just about a week or so, and that's been 2 months now.
Okay.
So that's the whole history of the property, is that they intended to do a roofing business and was denied, and went ahead and just had kind of done it anyway. And Lake Drive is a very small street. Cars zip up and down it, and they use that entrance in and out with their trucks and trailers. It's causing quite a mess.
Yep. And is anyone here?
I don't see anyone.
No? Okay. I'll take a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion on this case, please, number 20927. That we found in violation, and that the violation be corrected within 10 days, or a fine of $250 a day will be imposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And that page is done. That page is- So we are now into, these non-compliance cases.
And Mr. Chair, you should have been given packets for those. Basically, because the agenda was so large and there were so many pictures, there was a technical issue in getting the presentation to load under, we don't use the USB anymore, we have to do it through IT, and it wasn't downloading all the way, it was creating problems, so we removed them and gave you hard copy photos to look at.
Okay. That's all fine, except I don't think I have them.
Oh, okay, well. Okay, just as long as you get it to me. It's 1214, no, sorry, that's one.
So we're going to have hard copies for each of these cases?
Yes. 1501.
Okay. I remember that one. This is case CE 19-193.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. Property address is 1501 Harvard Drive. I'm submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on January 16th, 2020, and was found in violation of protective treatment, Section 6, 1003B. And it was given a compliance date of February 16th, 2020. I sent a notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020, and it was sent certified and posted. At this time, the property remains in violation. I don't believe there's anybody here tonight for the property.
Okay. Take a motion.
What is the violations on this one?
It's
Protective treatment.
Paint, huh?
It's
Storing junk.
mainly staining on the property.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Case CE 19193, I move to find the property owner non-compliant.
Thank you. Motion with a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. That motion passes. Next item is CE 19-395.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. Property address is 1512 Cambridge Drive. Submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on January 16th, 2020, and was found in violation of protective treatment with a compliance date for February 16th, 2020. I sent notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020. It was sent certified and posted. And there's a representative for the property here tonight. Did you want to speak, sir?
Did he have a chance to see your photos?
I don't believe he has, no, sir.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
please make sure he gets your photos.
And you'll need to be sworn in, sir.
You still have them? This is
Secretary.
the one.
They're being circulated still, I think.
Okay.
Swear in our gentleman, please.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My personal address or the address I'm representing? I'm sorry?
Personal address.
Personal address. My name is Samuel David Anderson. I live at 1344 Nelson Court in Rockledge.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, you're representing the owner of this property?
Yes, sir, I am. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just so you know, in a non-compliance hearing, there's really only one or two things can happen. We can say the property is in compliance, which the code officer has already told it is not, or we can say that it's non-compliant, in which case a lien will be filed and proceed forward that way. So is there anything you'd like to say on behalf of the owner?
It's been an interesting experience. I've been sitting over there listening to.
You've waited a long time.
I'm sorry?
You've waited a long time.
Reminded of Admiral Stockdale when he asked, "Why am I here?" I'm not too certain, frankly. What I would like to say is that the owner of this property is deceased. He died January 1 of 2019. This property is in probate. I am the personal representative for the estate. There is no money in the estate. It is severely upside down financially. I've been in touch with HUD and with FHA. They're not moving very fast. I would like it off my shoulders, if you will. They have replaced the commercial firm representing them. This just hangs on and on. I have kept the property under power to keep it from going into black mold situation. I have, for the most part, kept the property up in terms of lawn maintenance and such. I do not have deep pockets. I am retired. It's just getting to the point. With regard to when the property first went, was brought to my attention, if you will, mistake, I've been having problems keeping it mowed. In fact, the mower right now is $220 into me, or I meant to him, or somewhere. Because he stiffed me. And it hasn't been mowed. I've been trying to keep it mowed. I think that Steve would attest to trying to keep it up.
Since I've had contact with Mr. Anderson and he discovered the issue with his lawn maintenance individual, he has been keeping the grass cut, so it hasn't been posted for that recently.
On behalf of the neighbors, we thank you. And
Have you got a picture?
Yeah, she said they were circulating.
Yeah.
Right?
This package.
I didn't pass them down.
guess what I'm really asking or why I'm here. I don't really know what can be done. I understand your position in terms of having to fuel levy fines. I also understand that the purpose of this board is not for the collection of funds and will operate the city. We're here to try to clean it up and make it.
Yeah,
Well,
in this situation, the property will be found non-compliant, but since it's in probate, correct me if I'm not saying this right, do we even file a lien when it's in probate?
Yes, it,
File it, but it becomes part of the probate process.
that I don't know that the probate, I don't know that. I don't know that our lien gets wiped
well-
out by a probate.
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that we've already passed the time, if you will, for liens and such. It's a matter of being held up with FHA and HUD. I am not going to, put it this way, my wife and I's name is beneficiary, and we will do a quick claim, and it's going to pass directly to HUD. No, it's just going to go straight to the federales. It will not go through us.
Right.
So, yes, the federals, if you will, have deep pockets, but the point is, it's going to be a difficult situation. Thank you.
Okay, I just need a motion.
For the record, I have no objection to any of this. It's quite clear and it's accurate. The only difference is that since I know that what the lawn care person is doing, I'm keeping it clean at the present time.
As I said, we appreciate that. If it were not for you doing it, then we'd have to probably have the city do it, and that would run up some other kind of bill.
So is he in compliance with the weeds?
The weeds actually weren't on this. This was protective treatment.
So
The weeds
it's
had
only-
complied as asked.
Okay, so it's only the paint?
Yes, ma'am. And it's really staining on the front structure and unpainted area on the structure at the rear.
So if we would like the board to amend their motion from the original finding of $50 to $25, since there's only one violation out there.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I can make a motion, please, and find this in case number CE 19395, that is non-compliance, and that the fine will be $25 a day.
I second.
We need to reword that, or is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Take a second. Over here. Okay. Motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You have another question, sir?
Yes, sir, I do. With regard to the, I don't know how it's referred to as, the outbuilding in the back, the garage, if you will. That building went up approximately 15 years ago, and it's never been painted. Obviously during Mr. Logan's life. This other matter on the chimney, I guess that can be sprayed or something. But is there any allowance given for the fact it was never painted and never brought to Mr. Logan's attention? Or certainly no action was taken against him during his life?
I doubt that that's even something we looked at.
It was something that was part of the original site, and it hadn't been seen prior. When I went out to see that, I saw it when I was called. Actually, it was an anonymous complaint, swept the street on that particular area, and that was one of the things that was seen. Might not have been visible prior. It is kind of just a little tiny area that you see from the road, but when I sweep a property, I try to cover everything so it doesn't.
And Mr. Chair, if he corrects all the other painting issues, that's something we can look at and discuss with him and just see. The code has been the code, and the reason for protective treatment is to protect bare concrete or wood from whatever, but he's, even with that pushed aside, there's still protective treatment issues, so we kind of maybe get that done and then see where we are.
Okay,
And staff would be happy to look at that then.
so if it's just a minor issue, yeah, maybe it can be taken care of, and then we don't have any of the non-compliant things to worry with.
And he's been great about keeping in contact with me, so as soon as he gets to where he needs me to come out and take a look, I'll be right out there.
What did we do? We made a motion, but we didn't vote yet. Counselor, would it be better if we set this aside or vote on it and let it move forward and if they do the painting or whatever?
Well, I think you should go ahead and enter your order, and then if he gets the painting done and he comes into compliance, then the fine will at least stop.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And thank you for being here on behalf of the deceased. And stay in touch as you have been doing. And
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, and that is I'll say that Steve and Ms. Katie have been very professional in the way they do business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Almost there. Next is CE 19-396.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. The property address is 1215 Vassar Lane. I'm submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property, and they accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on January 16, 2020, and was found in violation of protective treatment, Section 6-1003B, parking in yard, Section 6-900B9, permit required, Appendix A, Article 15, Section 2A, storing junk or autos, Section 6-902B1 and 2, and storing outdoors, Section 6-900B11. It was given a compliance date of March 17, 2020. I sent a notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020, and it was sent certified and posted. At this time, the property remains in violation. I don't believe there's anybody here tonight for it. Nobody here tonight.
Nobody here, okay. Take a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
Good.
In case of 19-96, we accept staff recommendation to render the property in non-compliance.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Next item is CE 19-398.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer. I'm submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This case is brought before the Code Enforcement Board on January 16, 2020, and was found in violation of roofs and drainage, Section 6-1003G, and permit required, Appendix A, Article 15, Section 2A. It was given a compliance date of March 17, 2020. I sent a notice for hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020, and it was sent certified and posted. At this time, the property remains in violation. I believe there's a member for the property here tonight. No? Wasn't there somebody here? No? 23 Travis? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't
No
hear.
problem. We're all in costume, so.
Okay. you have
Please
to be
make sure
sworn
she
in.
gets your packet, too.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to be sworn in, please.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sarah Stanley. My
Please
address
speak
is,
to the microphone for me. Thank you.
my
name is Teresina Nguyen. My address is 5325 Fade Boulevard, Cocoa, Florida, 329.
Okay, and you are the owner of this property?
My grandmother was the owner.
Okay. Just so you understand the proceeding at this point, this property was found in violation back in November?
January 16th.
January?
Yes, sir.
And at this point, it hasn't been brought into compliance, and this is a non-compliance hearing. There's only two things we can do. One is to say it is compliant, and the other is to say it's not. If it's not compliant, then there will be a lien filed against the property owner.
Okay, so.
Mr. Chair, just on this particular case, based on the history, I didn't catch it earlier. I would like to table this matter because she has an issue with a death in the family, a probate, and some of the violations would require permits and signatures of owners, and that has not all been established yet. So I think maybe we should table this till the next hearing. I would like to hear what she has to say, but I think that's going to be part of her issues, is the fact that she's not actually the owner, and it hasn't actually been awarded to her at this time.
You're absolutely correct in that situation, and I have been trying to get some advice on how I need to do and what I need to do. Yes, you're right, I did have a death, and I've been dealing with a lot of things a lot of unfinished business, because I thought it was my understanding that it was my mother's property, which I am the PR for my mother, who's Helen Kane, and my grandmother's Helen Nguyen. So this just is a mess, and I'm trying to work very hard at trying to get it straightened out.
Okay, well, we'll make this easier for you, at least tonight. I'll take a motion to table. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on this, case number CE 19398, that we table it, please.
Second.
Motion with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or none? This is tabled. It'll be tabled until you're notified again.
Okay.
And you stay in touch with, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Next item is CE 19-532.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdock, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. Property address is 1311 North Fisk Boulevard. Submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property, and they accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on February 20th and was found in violation of parking in the yard, section 6900B9. They were given a compliance date of March 20th, 2020. I sent the notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020, and it was sent certified and posted. At this time, the property remains in violation. Are you here for, she's here for the property tonight.
Okay. You'll need to be sworn in, please, ma'am.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please state your name and address for the record, and you can pull the microphone to you.
Victoria Estrada, 1311 North Fisk Boulevard.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Victoria Estrada, 1311 North Fisk Boulevard.
Okay. The issue is parking in the yard.
I brought pictures. We cleaned up the whole side of the house. Put the, all the cars are on the cement. I added rocks to extend the cement. So there's no more parking in the yard. I mean, I can show you the pictures.
I was gonna say, it's been a continuous thing, and not just on the side yard, but in the very front yard, right out in front. And it's I take pictures regularly, so it's something that's gotta be, it's not just one clean up and done, it's gotta be something
Oh,
that's
no,
maintained.
nobody's allowed to park there anymore. I'm done with it.
Okay.
I'm done with my neighbor, I'm done with all of it.
Okay.
That parking in the yard is the least violation right now, but that's done.
So you can assure us there won't be any more vehicles parked on the grass in the
No,
front yard?
at all. As I was leaving, somebody was gonna do it, and I made them move. It's not happening.
Okay. Is it compliant today? Did you go by that?
It wasn't compliant this morning when I went by, no,
I can
sir.
show you pictures. I didn't get a chance to print them. I literally worked from 6 in the morning.
Yeah, that's,
I got here.
that's fine. Do you have a picture on your phone?
Yes.
Steve, take a look at the picture on her phone. If it, satisfies you, it'll satisfy us.
Nothing there. And I can see all the cars.
See, this is still sitting on the.
That's
dirt.
rock.
Yeah, but the back end's not on rock, and is that the right kind of rock? You can't just throw rock down, that's what we were talking about earlier as well. You can't just throw down lime rock or whatever.
It's not lime rock.
It's gotta be approved.
What kind of rock?
You have to talk to planning and zoning.
You told me it was anything.
I wouldn't have told you anything,
You told
paving,
me-
yes ma'am, paving, but not rock.
You told me it was anything that was removed. It could be rock, it could be paved. I couldn't afford to.
You may have
I
talked,
did
you
the
may have
rock.
talked to another officer, that wasn't me, ma'am.
Well, can I have 15 days to put paving down?
Yeah, at this point, you can have
I
as,
was offering 30 days, so.
I want to get it done.
Oh, no, this is not compliance, I'm sorry, yeah.
but this is
I
not
was on the
compliant.
other case.
At this point, what needs to happen, if this car is still there, as evidenced by your own picture, then we'll
It
find it.
doesn't look like that, though. I can show you the picture. All those two cars are parked in the cement. My husband's car is parked behind the black one, and it's the tail end of his pickup truck that's coming off the rocks. If I need to put pavers down, I can do that.
Mr. Chairman, this is the same repeat case we heard at the beginning of the night with all the automotive vehicles parked all over there. They got a single-car driveway. They park over there, but there's cars that park in the front. She may be in compliance today, as far as nobody on there, but as of the 19th, there was cars parked there.
Yeah.
So either way, I mean, to staff's satisfaction, she has not come into compliance. There are cars
How
parked
do
there.
I come into compliance? You're judging me.
You need to park on your driveway.
I understand that, but you're judging me based on people parking in my front yard. I'm saying that I'm not going to do that anymore. How are you going to find me not compliant because you don't believe I'm not
Well,
going to?
your date for compliance was actually months ago.
March 20th.
So you've actually been out of compliance. So even if the board said, as of today,
I've been
you're in
sick for a month
compliance,
and a
you've
half.
still been out of compliance. Because,
I lost my job, and I've actually had 2 situations in my house where I'm not going to be working anytime soon. So, I bought titles to my cars. There's no business being held there. I mean, it's not. The cars parked in front of my house, might be people coming to see me, visit, whatever, but I'm not parking.
and again, it may not be anymore, but there was a date for you to come into compliance. So I would at least ask the board to hold them, especially since this is a repeat and this is actually part of the 3 cases that we had on this. This is a chronic complaint case that we get. And as you can see from the photos on the screen from the repeat violation, there's numerous photos of cars parking all across the front yard, along the side.
Yeah.
So,
But I don't,
and then this is a case that we just had earlier for the repeat. He's been making repairs on cars.
he's not making repairs on cars.
He has been.
On his own, on our car. He's allowed to work on his car. He's not allowed to work on other people's cars. As I said, I have titles. And the trailer that you keep showing is parked on the side of the house, which is where I was told I could put something.
If it's behind the house, but I've got numerous pictures I just showed where you have up to 7, 8 cars across the front of your house. And the lady next door calls consistently, and
Oh, I
Steve's
know.
got numerous.
She calls every,
and
she calls
Steve's
when
got
my dog
numerous
runs
pictures.
away, and I call the, I'm actually about to figure out how I can sue her civilly for harassment, because now she calls for the fact that my dog ran outside, and I said, Odin, come here.
Well,
Apparently, I said,
she calls though, and when we go out to look, if there's no violations, and she keeps calling,
Not
that would be
once.
harassment. But you have been in violation. You've been in violation of running a motorcycle shop and
And that-
fixing motorcycles, and that's actually run a fine
That was after
against the property.
my shop was robbed.
I understand.
And we went
heard
back
the-
and
we
then
heard
we
the
stopped.
story.
We stopped because I actually. had
Steve, when was the last time you saw a
$5,000
car parked in the front yard?
Probably a day or two ago. It was a truck, not the little truck, maybe the truck in the background. It was a small
Okay.
pickup that was in the front.
So it's up to the
Up on
board.
jacks.
But when was their compliance date?
Compliance date was March 20th.
Okay.
I'm not asking for anything other than maybe hold it for me till the next hearing, and you guys can come by every day and take a picture. There will not be any more cars parked in front of my house.
That's up to the board. I'm just stating
But the
those.
compliance date has long passed.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
In the case of 19-532, like to recommend that we accept staff recommendation, find this property in non-compliance.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And my suggestion to you, ma'am, is to keep track somehow of,
But it's not fair because
make
I
a,
did
make a
exactly what I
photo,
was
make a,
told.
no, let me
I did
finish.
exactly what I was told, though.
Okay, make a photo every day with a date on it, and after a week, call Officer Murdoch and have him come and take a look at them. That's all we can do. We've got to make sure there are no cars there, otherwise it's non-compliant.
And we will even I'll send Steve out there tomorrow or the next day, and if there's no cars, we'll close the case as of that day, which will make
So
it
how
from
much is
March
the
till
lien
then.
now?
But that's the best we
It
can do.
doesn't cost you, we're not here to be punitive, to make money for the city. That's not the object. The object is to clean up the city and make it look as good as it can. So what the director has said is, we'll send the officer out tomorrow. If it's all cleaned up, he can
close it right.
Close the case right then. So, okay? I think that's about as fair as we can be, and I hope it will work out for you.
Is there going to be a lien on my property now, or?
Not at this point, no. No, the lien wouldn't happen until I sign it, and I won't sign it until he tells me that you're non-compliant,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, thank you for being here. Next, 2019-0079.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdoch, Code Enforcement Officer. Property address is 107 Cocoa Place. I'm submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on February 20th, 2020, and was found in violation of storing outdoors. Compliance date was given of March 20th, 2020. I sent a notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020. It was sent certified and posted. And at this time, the property remains in violation.
Got somebody? Nobody?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Please, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion on this case, CE 2019-0079 is found in violation with,
Non-compliant.
I mean, it's getting old here.
Second.
Motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. The motion is passed. And the next item is CE 19-397.
For the record, I'm Steve Murdoch, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Cocoa. The property address is 830 Florida Ave. Submitting photos that I took during my re-inspections of the property. They accurately depict the property during my visits. This case was brought before the Code Enforcement Board on February 20th, 2020, and was found in violation of boarded up buildings, Section 6 900B5, protective treatment, Section 6, 1003B. Compliance date was given of April 19th, 2020. I sent notice of hearing for noncompliance on 7/31/2020. It was sent certified and posted. At this time, the property remains in violation, and the property representative's here tonight.
Okay. It remains in violation, though, there's nothing
Yes,
been done?
the property has come a long way, and it's definitely in the home stretch. If you see the pictures in the packet, they've done a lot of work. But yeah, still not quite there.
The arm isn't long enough. I didn't know you've been saving these up down here.
Yeah, I'm like a squirrel with acorns.
I did. Please state your name and address for the record.
I really need you guys to make sure that the person
She sees it first.
gets those.
Yeah.
We've done that one.
In fact, it's almost as important that the respondent gets the packet than as the board gets the packet. In fact, it's equally as important.
No, wrong one, Steve. I got it in my hand.
Okay. Starting to get there.
There you go.
It's important to read what you got in your hand.
The long hours are getting down.
I think we're wearing down.
They've been overworking. Look at all the stuff they give us. Amazing. Like today.
And just for the record, that is your property?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you've already been sworn in, and so my question, ma'am, is, having looked at those pictures, do you feel everything is done? Do you think there's a little bit more to do?
No, we're very close. What happened, my GC had told me, and as I had told you guys, the project was scheduled to be start in the beginning of April. We thought it was going to be about, can I pull this down?
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be about 4 days. They started the work, and then the COVID issue hit. He had some people get sick, but also we discovered that more needed to be done. It wasn't going to look right just painting it. So then we had to go and get a first permit to start the painting. So between illnesses, death, and then we decided to put the hardy board, or forget what the stuff is in the front, so I wanted it to look nicer. So basically then it got down to, we thought it would have been completed in June, but waiting on permit and health issues with his employees, that was the delay. As of right now, Mother Nature became the issue, but he thought he would have it completed in the next couple of days because now it was getting down to painting.
Okay, so you feel like you'll be done like in a week's time?
We should. I mean, aside of barring Mother Nature, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there were issues beyond our control, so.
Right now, it's still non-compliant?
Yes, sir, just barely.
Okay.
It's very close.
Yeah.
Just a little paint.
Well, what we, as I said earlier, we really only have two choices. It's either compliant or not. If we find it non-compliant, as soon as you get that work done, if it's tomorrow or it's a week from now, call him, let him know. He can verify it, take it off the calendar, and then no further action will take place. Okay?
And we would be cleared of any fine if it's all.
Well, you would have a
completed.
fine, but you could we'll get with you and we'll be able to do a lien reduction where you can come back before the board.
Okay.
And get it done, but in your case, it would be relatively quick, I would hope.
Okay.
So it'd be fresh on everybody's mind, so you
Okay.
retell your story with the contractor and we go for an introduction.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Curtis,
Yes.
I'd like to call upon you to make a motion.
Oh, no, you can't call on the spot. Okay. I would like to make a motion on item number 19.97 to go with the recommendation of the staff for the noncompliance.
That's it.
Second?
Motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion's passed. Thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Got to start somewhere. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Dennis, any announcements?
No, I have none.
Oh, good. We don't have any other business. Our next meeting, hopefully, will be September 17, 2020, right here in this same place. Thank you, one and all. See you then. Meeting adjourned.
No. This is